Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have you at Microsoft this year, JDConf 2025. We're going to unlock the newest, coolest things about Java and AI. And before we dive into the sessions, first of all, I'm based in Germany, Berlin. Please tell me in the chat where you're coming from. And if the timetable is good for you, we already have it 11 a.m. in my time zone, but I think it's a very, very great opportunity. We have all the different sessions around the hour here. And before we even start, let's have a quick look at the code of conduct for Microsoft JDConf. So as you can see here, please be nice. That's the overall thing. We welcome everyone, no matter how you look like or what you identify with. We respect each other, and we have no place for any harassment. We are all here to learn, and we have the best speakers, I think. Can we please go to the agenda next? So we will have Mohammed joining us very soon, who will tell us everything about the hidden gems of Java 25. Then I can't wait to see my colleagues Julia and Brian talking about GitHub Copilot in our favorite Java IDEs. I hope they have all three of them with them. And then my dear friend Lisa Reyes talking about LangChain4j and what's new and cool there. And then even Spring AI. And also my friends from Adesso are here, Frederick Hane, who will talk about HTMX and Hypermedia. One last thing, we also have the surveys, since we're very interested, and maybe we play a hidden game. Who's the best speaker? And also, who's your favorite host? No, just kidding. So feedback is very welcome. We love your data shown. We love your feedback. For us, it's very important to make this event the best experience for all of us. And with no further ado, let me welcome Mohammed on stage with me.
Hello, hi Sandra. Thank you for pronouncing my names very correctly. I'm happy for that.
Can you please say it again yourself and say a few words about yourself? You're working for Oracle, right?
I was working for Oracle a long time ago, but I'm Java champion, and this is why, speaking about Java today, I'm working as a solution architect for Magna International.
Okay.
It's an automotive car industry, so
okay.
Java and Microsoft has a big plans in our company, especially Azure.
Thanks a lot. I haven't tried out Java 25 yet, but I'm also not a Java champion, so I guess it's some kind of secrets you're having. But I can't wait to hear all the newest things about it. Are you even doing some live coding?
And not so much. Like it would be like showing code more than like because of the time constraints, but people will get in touch with what we have and the plans for 2025 as its early stage to determine what is really upcoming. But we following the mailing list and all the development from Oracle teams, we almost figure out what is coming, and we would like to plan to speak about the plans and future things coming this year, especially not only in Java 2025. So I hope that people will get benefit from this to plan accordingly.
Okay, if you have questions, please use the chat and we can address them after the session. And Mohammed, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Again, hello and good morning for everyone in our Zoom. I'm based in Belgrade, so my time now is almost same like all European, almost like 1 hour or less. So as I mentioned before, my name is Mohammed Taman. I'm Java champion and working as a solution architect for Magna. So I'm glad to be here today at Microsoft Java Developer Conference 2025. Thanks for having me here again. So as a part of slogan, code the future with Java and AI, during my presentation, Java 25's Hidden Gems, I will discuss a significant plans for Java 25 that promote its continued evolution. So, however, I just want to give disclaimer here that I cannot promise to cover everything due to time constraint, but at the end, there are resources available for further exploration. So without further ado, let's deep dive to our presentation. So I do write articles and I have some publications, not very famous, but it's still sold out until now, specific of them. So please follow. And if you have any questions on anything, you can catch me here. Those are the most common social media links that you can reach me out, have any questions, discussions, and especially my GitHub account contain all my POCs and the new, updates for Spring, for Java, promoting and updating my latest project to Java 25 or Java 24 to see the migration plans. There is a lot of documentation things. I hope it will be very useful for you. If you are lazy like me, which is the good thing sometimes, you can just search my name, Mohammed Taman, on Google, and you will find all these kind of things, so you don't have to memorize it. So let's see our agenda today. We will have a little bit introduction, and we're going to check out some language improvement that are coming into Java 25. And also we would like to check some improvement and behind the scene improvement and addition and some relevant bug fixes, and as well as additions and security enhancement to the language that already delivered. And also we, as there is new APIs coming, there is APIs going. So we have to know about them in order to know how to avoid using them and the future plan for removing. Then you can stop using and you see the alternatives for those. So it's very important to keep this housekeeping. And finally, I would like to speak about projects, JDK projects, plans for 2025, and how it will affect Java 25 development and the future projects that we will have. Specific, not all of them, but I will focus on 3 major projects that we will speak. Then, if we have time, we have questions. If not, you can ask me outside. So what happens? Yes, Java is like ninja for me. Every day is evolving, and also promoting, modernizing, and it's really now we can use Java everywhere again. And happy birthday for Java. It's 30 years old language, which is with a very stability and very optimistic plans about the future, and it's catching up with all the trends and solving almost all the use cases and corner use cases that we have, from cloud to embedded systems, as well as mobile devices, and on-prem as well, and web. So some specific plans, that Java 25 arrived on last March. So this is with the celebration of 20 years. So, and also it has 24 JIPs that has been delivered that cover improvements to the language, API, performance, and tooling, including in the JDK itself. Java 25 will arrive on September 16th as proposed, and the final, schedule for that. And Java 25 is available for now as a fork from OpenJDK for download, and you can start trying it out. And it has some additions and bug fixes and API enhancement that you can read on the release notes. And it currently, as of current of this presentation, its build is 17. So Java will continue evolving in 2025. There is a many big plans for OpenJDK from projects like Babylon, Loom will continue, Lydian, Lilliput, Banama, and Valhalla is plans to push Java forward. So we would have to speak about some of them, and let's see the plans. So first, and always would love to see about what is the language improvement that has been committed. If you go to visit the JDK website, and which is you can see there is legend always I will give on the upper right corner of the presentation. After I share this presentation with you, you can just click to the link, go to the JIP 502, and you can view the whole Java enhancement proposal about all the changes, motivations, and goals, and everything. So the first thing that you will find is that targeting 25 is stable values. And this is very important API, because stable values are values that can be assigned only once during an application runtimes, remaining constant thereafter, regardless of when they are set. And this is very important. But if you are asking me why we are trying to get, what is the benefit from having stable values, is stable values is the way to standardize lazy initialization, because in normally using Java, we have a different way to do lazy initialization to optimize the code and only ask for initializing objects on demand when we need it. So, but the variation is not always optimized, and it's not readable for each developer, and even sometimes developers even doesn't understand why we are doing this code in this way. So as I mentioned again, why stable values? It's a standardized the lazy initialization of constants and enable the GVM mainly to optimize these constants similarly to how it handles final values. So for sure, let's have a quick example to understand, consider this simple application. Component with logger. We always log in our application. This is very viable use case. So the logger here actually is a final field in order controller, must be eagerly initialized whenever an instance is created. This can slow the creation, as obtaining a logger often involve costly operations like reading configurations data and preparing log storage. This is hurting performance. But what if we have multiple components, each with its own logger? The application starts very slowly as each component initializes its logger, for sure, which can hurt startup time and many because unnecessary a need for this. Some component even might never log events. So why do we do these costly operations upfront? So we often delay initialization and initializing complex object until necessity comes, ensuring they are created only when we need it. So we do this with abundant of the final keyword. So one way is to achieve this as mentioned, abundant the final keyword and rely on mutable fields to express at most once mutation. As we are doing in this Git logger. It's not thread safe and it has some consequences. So the solution here is to use a stable value. A stable value of the type stable value class holds a single data value. It must be initialized before it's retrieved and remain immutable, and it enables deferred immutability. So the logger field holds the stable value from stable value of factory method. Initially, this value is unset and contain no content. Then the get logger method invokes logger.or-else set. So on the stable value to retrieve its content. If the stable value is set, or else set returns the value. If it's unset, it's initialize the stable value using the provided lambda expression, as you can see here, and return the value. Thus, or else set ensure that the stable value is initialized before it's used. Our example here, initialize a stable value when calling or else set in the get logger method, allowing the content actually to use the information available there. However, accessing the logger's stable value must go through the method every time and do some computation. So it's better to specify how to initialize the stable value at declaration without initializing it. Then this can be done with supplier of the stable value, and this is more even readable, and it will guarantee all the laziness, create at most one, and it is thread safe. So this is the preferred way to initialize stable value, and this is all about the stable value. So let's check out some improvements. And we first we have some problems that initially has been mandated by Java language specification, but it was not mentioned. So in Java, each instance actually, when you have inner classes and you are trying to create this class hierarchy, inner class has to has instance of the outer class passed to it. So and it's tied to enclosing classes. When we are create inner classes using the new keyword, especially the enclosing instance is passed to its constructor. Although this is happening behind the scene and it's not something that you have seen, but in the Java language specification, as I mentioned, they have proposed something like this. But so before JDK 25, there was the bug. Like it was possible to use the core reflection, such as new instance or specifically crafted classes files to invoke inner classes constructor with null. And a lot of legacy code also have this kind of notation. So as this is also will result, in unexpected program failures and behavior. So in 25, this behavior has been, fixed. And in Java 25, Java adds actually a null check for the enclosing instance in the inner class constructor. Now, instantiating an inner class with a null enclosing instance is not possible anymore. But someone will ask me, like, I have a legacy systems, but I cannot change and I need to bypass these checks. The good news is that for legacy code, attune or risk use the unsupported options like null check outer this equal to false, and it will bypass until you do the final migration. So another enhancement that has happened, the default console obtained via system.console is no longer based on JLine. And since, by the way, JDK 20, the JDK has included J-based line console implementation. Why? Offering a richer user experience and better support for virtual terminals, especially for IDEs. And the implementation was initially opt-in, so you have to, choose to opt in this implementation as a system property in JDK 20 and in JDK 2021, and it becomes default, in Java 22. So there is some maintenance problems, and maintaining Java baseline console has proven it's challenging and that it's not adequate easily. So consequently, Java reverts back to opt-in, similar to Java 20 and 21. So if you're feeling that when you use Java 25, it will be continued based on the G-line as a console implementation. No, it will not. You have to specify it in the properties file. So we had problems with file API, the old one. It's part of java.io.file that treats empty path name as a current user directly. It doesn't do the same. So it has a lot of failed, implementation and unsupported behavior based on this. So from now on, the class has been updated so that an instance of the file created from the empty abstract path name now behaves constantly like a file created from the current user directory. And this is very important. So a long-standing issue was that some methods failed with an empty path name, and thus that means this changes methods now can read exist is directory method return true. Before it was failing with false, and you have get free space, last modified, length methods return now expected values instead of 0, and finally set readable and set last modified will attempt to change the file attribute instead of failing. So all of those methods were failing before, but now they are providing the right behavior. And this is also, I want to mention one last thing, sorry. This is with this change, java.io.file is now aligned with the same behavior of java.newIO file API. So if you are zipping and unzipping and extracting files from zip files or archive or jar files, now application could previously invoke end methods to release the resources held by inflator and deflators instances. But for now, they start to implement autoclosable. We are happy enough to use it with try resource statement, and also calling end and close will do the same behavior by releasing the instances of inflators and deflators. So I'm very excited and very happy to announce that in Java 25, all the requirement for TLS version 1.3 and CNCA1 algorithms has been added to the list of cryptographic requirements that all Java EE implementations must support. All cryptographic algorithms necessary for implementing the TLS version 1.3 cipher suite and signature mechanisms, which are defined in RFC 8446 as a must or should, now has been added and included in the implementation, and also all the algorithms that has been required by CNA version 1 has been also added. So we are now have all the security suite, fresh algorithms that keep our code secure and non-vulnerable. Final small updates that people like regarding the locales and date from Unicode Consortium Consortium CLDR is now upgraded to version 47, like featuring new local dates, translation changes, and essential update affecting date, time, and number formatting. So those are some enhancements. That there is more, but which is I can't cover now. But I'm trying to give you the most significant about APIs, bug fixes, security, and some local changes. Now let's say that what we need to remove from our API in order also to do our migration. So let's say what is we gonna farewell to some APIs that has gone forever. First one is to remove the source code and build support for the last part of 32-bit port. So after removing the 32-bit port for Windows in Java 24, Java 25 also will remove the remaining 32-bit variant for Linux. And why this? The goal of this is to reduce the extra effort actually needed for 32-bit port in the future, enabling JDK developers to focus more and solely on the new features like Loom, foreign functional memory APIs, Vector API, and later GC barrier expansion and more. So this is why the cost of maintaining this port exceeds the benefits that we will have it in the JDK. There is something not yet announced on the JDK as a feature set, but I am proposing that it will come later. But this is from the mailing list because it was proposed to remove finally the applet API for many reasons, because it was deprecated for removal since JDK 17. It's obsolete because there is no one from the vendors, neither JDK releases, no current web browser support the applets anymore, and the motivation list is very long that will move us to remove this API because it's not relevant anymore. And there is no reason for sure to maintain and retain unused and unstable applet API anymore. And since JDK 25, it will be removed completely with all its related APIs. So now let's speak about the projects and plans for 2025 JDK. So in 25 project, as I mentioned, Babylon, Loom, Lydian, Lilliput, Banama, and Valhalla. It's something like vanilla, but it's sweet and short to pronounce like Valhalla, actually. The plans, this section discuss Java 24 strategies, actually focusing on the key OpenJDK project, Loom, Banama, and Valhalla, from my perspective, because those are completely affecting the JDK development, and and they are relying to each other. So the plans are really promising here in 2025, and it will affect the Java version 2025. So before we begin, I want again to clarify that while I'm outlining the target project features for this year, actually, they may not be released in Java 25. So let's stay patient. So are you ready? Let's deep dive in. First of all, Project Loom. In 2023, Project Loom finally the revolution and revolutionized the way that we would like to deal with threading. They finalized virtual threads, and they are in production now. And a lot of frameworks and benchmarks show that virtual threads really prove stability and very big performance rather than a normal operating system thread or normal thread. So after this finalization of virtual threads, eliminating the main barrier to adoption in 2024. So, for example, binning threads with object monitors, now there is no need for pinning in synchronized block or objects waits method. This feature actually has been finished and also was released in last March with JDK 24. Currently the highest priority and plans for 2025 is the work toward structured concurrency API finalization. And this is concurrent. This streamlines the concurrent programming by treating related tasks in a different threads as a single unit of work, providing advantages over other thread modules. So second is scoped value can be like, finalization. And scope values can be summarized as an improved, more virtual thread-friendly version of thread local for sharing data between talking threads. So this was like the plans for Project Room, and it's very important because it affects performance and scalability of our projects. Let's speak about Project Panama, very, very, very important project. And the Project Panama has three essential plans for 2025. And first, the Vector API, which is still waiting for its cousin, Valhalla project. So let's discuss that the Vector API, which is actually stable, and it went through, it's now like 10th incubation. And it's somehow very stable to be used, which is stable and used by several projects. However, it's still await Valhalla for identity and specification for optimal performance. Vectors must lack identity, which is achieved through a custom optimizations in the hotspot. This behavior remains uncertain without value types. And those value types, once Valhalla Java Enhancement Proposal 401 initiates the preview on value classes and objects, the Vector API can transition from incubation to preview, leading to a throughout re-evaluation that may result in some modification for Vector API optimization. So the foreign function and memory API was finalized in Java and JDK 2022 as well, and has received positive feedback. The project now focuses on optimizing memory access for maximum performance, and this is very important, and minimizing startup and warm-up time with method and variable handles. And it's like more improvement for FFM. And also, they are creating something called developing record mappers for efficient mapping between the native memory, segments, and Java abstractions like records and interfaces. Core functionality is progressing well, with various methods being explored. Finally, which is the last point, JExtract generate bindings from native libraries, focusing in simplifying simplifying the bindings between those headers and data. Just focusing on the simpler binding with a fewer side classes generated through the stable value API. That this is very important for us. Stable values are under development, as you have seen before, and that once it releases here in JDK 2025, it will be very easy to JExtract to finalize its work and binding. So lastly, Valhalla. We cannot finish the presentation without speaking about the plans for Valhalla. And as I mentioned before, JEP 401 value classes and object preview has become a tip of the spear. The primary focus is getting it out to you. A surprising, actually, like something coming to Valhalla, right, like emergence of null check types such as like string bang and string question mark, also called like emotional types, presumably not because they are evoking strong feelings, although they are doing. So we might see this kind of enhancement. I'm very interesting about it. And finally, some early exploration of improved numerics and primitive layered on top of the value classes. So if you'd like to learn more about this, there are a lot of resources from the Oracle developer team relationship, and you can visit Java Inside the Java, and also a lot of articles on Microsoft, like with cooperation with the teams from Oracle to bring Java forward. And there is like OpenJDK also. And here all the links that you can visit in order to know more about it. And thank you very much for having me here. If there is any questions, you are welcome. And if we don't have time, as I see, only 10 minutes, you can ask me later on.
Thanks, Mohammed. That had been so insightful. So you blew away everyone because we don't have many questions on the chat for this session. So very well explained. That's usually what it means if you have no questions. So what's your favorite #1 feature coming up? Like, what are you
I want to
most
see
excited
this
about?
finalization of foreign memory and APIs, and also the Vector API, because it's very, very great addition, and it will allow us also to more optimization toward AI and external mapping and all this. Panama project is very, very important. So I'm like waiting for finalization so we can use it and utilize it in the production with all the AI tools. As you know, today is the AI era for now, like, and every day there is something new. So would love
That's
to
so
see this.
true. Every day is something new, and I really love the fact that Java stays ahead the curve, that I can use AI,
Yes,
even
we are
leverage
not slow
AI by
anymore.
coding. Huh?
We are not slow anymore like before. Every 6 months,
No,
Java
Java is
providing
keeping up with
something new.
performance. I
Yep,
mean, already in 2013, where I was at the company back then, we bet on Java, and I think still stock markets, most of it's still on Java because it's reliable, it's fast. Had been, is, we are
and it's more
using it,
modern now.
and it's even getting more and more modernized. So it's
Yep,
even easier to switch between languages because, like, I mean, there's actually
exactly.
no feature missing, like that I like in the past. I might have had this when I jumped back from JavaScript, but now I have it's all there. Why should I go anywhere else, right?
I can mention that my company is like rely solely on Microsoft technologies. Like I'm Java person working for a company that even there is no mentioning for Java. But I can understand with when I'm working with the team on JavaScript or C# language. So Java is catching all the new features in every language and trying to bring it in modernize and very speedy way, which is I love to catch up. So when people like to me, "Hey, Java dead," you don't read about it. It's just a very overview session, what we already have. So it's not that. And your tools are built on Java, guys. So
That's true. Well,
it's
Java
always
was
like
already
this
dead
language.
when I
Yeah,
learned it 15 years ago. So, I mean, that
exactly. And
statement
we're
never
celebrating
changed.
30 years of Java. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, thanks again
Amazing.
for this wonderful session. I believe you are up for more questions in the chat on our YouTube. And we free the stage for Julia and Brian. Julia, please unmute yourself so we can also hear you. Great. How is it? Brian, it's super early for you, right?
Yeah, it's late/early. I'm based in Las Vegas, so it is currently 2:33 in the morning, which, as Sandra knows, I'm a bit of a night owl anyway. I quite often catch the our daily stand up, which happens at midnight because it's in European time. So, hey, works for me.
Okay, so thanks for the fact that you're a night owl and thanks for being here with us. And I'm also super happy to welcome Julia. Are you in the office?
No, I'm actually at a customer site trying to squeeze our little talk here in while I'm working with our customers to make them successful, obviously.
Oh, wow. So our tools are available everywhere. Our speakers are also available everywhere. And I also saw a lot of pictures like shared online, like people at the gym watching JDConf sessions, doing their workouts. So welcome everyone. And also now is a good time to order food if you're in my time zone, which would be 11:30, because then you would have it to stay with us and you can just eat in front of your computer. You bring a lot of AI coding assistants with you, like GitHub Copilot?
Of course, GitHub Copilot is our best AI companion also for Java.
Also for Java in all IDEs? Are you also bringing Copilot in Eclipse with you?
Obviously.
Okay, I think I will not disturb the start of this session any longer. Please have a look at, we still value your feedback. So can we please have the QR code very quickly for the survey? And then I will leave the stage to Julia and Brian.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, I guess we're getting started. Julie, do you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll go?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Brian. So my name is Julia. I am located in Germany. I'm working as a so-called global black belt for Microsoft. And it basically means I'm a subject matter expert for a certain kind of field, and that field is developer productivity. And we are working very closely with our GitHub colleagues, obviously also not only in the automation part, but also in the AI-assisted coding part. So this is why I'm here today, to bring you the latest and greatest about GitHub Copilot. So Brian, you also want to introduce yourself, although you're very famous already.
Oh, thanks. Oh, not really. But my name is Brian Benz. I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft for a while now, since the early days of the cloud, and really enjoying working with AI. We're working with AI and our partners in AI, like NVIDIA, Red Hat, IBM, Oracle, and others, to bring you the best. Oh, and OpenAI, of course, and some other large language model vendors, bringing you the best and the most efficient large language models and AI tools, GitHub, Copilot, all kinds of things, which we're going to show you today. So actually, to get started, I think we're showing my screen right now, but we want to show Julia's or are we? Yeah, we're showing mine.
So. Yeah, we wanted to show my screen, I think. So are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, but I think we're showing the wrong screen. So let me fix that real quick. So better. So what you can see here, I am in Microsoft DevBox, and we want to show you just the basic capabilities of GitHub Copilot today, and obviously also in one of our favorite IDEs, who is obviously also Eclipse. So when I was a developer back then in university, which is almost like 13 years ago, Java was the first language I was learning, and we obviously in university we developed in Eclipse, and back then there were no AI-assisted coding, right? So here you can see Eclipse, obviously, and this is not my edge that is showing. Doesn't really matter for now. Eclipse is now also landed, GitHub Copilot has now also landed in Eclipse, and in like the most simple way for now, for the beginning, as it is fairly new. So I'm pretty sure you're all aware of GitHub Copilot Chat, which also lives with me in my favorite Java IDE. But the most narrowed down part to use Eclipse is obviously in our day-to-day coding, right? So when I am in a file, I want to GitHub Copilot to just assist me with everything what I'm actually doing. And when I'm in the flow and I'm actually coding here, I wanted to help us in all the, what is it doing? I'm sorry. There we're back. And this is the website we're currently having here. I currently have it running on localhost. It says hello JDConf. And what I want to now provide for you is that it gives us a programmer joke, just to having like being a little bit on a better mood side, right? So I'm going back into Eclipse, and I prepared this obviously. And what I now want to do is I want to give GitHub Copilot always some kind of hints what I'm actually wanted to do. The context that it provided, it is always the file that I have currently open. And in the file that I have currently open, obviously comments are like a big part of context that we can provide for our AI assisted coding. So I will close the chat for now and focus only on the file. I want to have 5 programmer jokes that change every time I refresh the page. You see, GitHub Copilot is also giving me hints what to actually write in the comment. Looks really good to me. So now I'm pressing enter, and GitHub Copilot immediately, as you can see, starts to give me suggestions how to solve the task I just described for it in the comment I just wrote. So all I can do is just click add, then it starts doing nothing. So I give it a little bit hint by starting with quotation marks, and the first joke it gives me why do programmers prefer dark mode. Sounds good to me. Now I'm Pressing enter again, it gives me another one, and another one, and another one. All right, now it's giving me like the same joke all the time. This is not what we want. Let's try to help it a little bit, because what AI really loves to do is following patterns, and obviously this joke is now a pattern for it. So let's try something else. What do you call a programmer in Finland? Nordic. Perfect. Ah.
Ouch. Sorry.
We're starting with a Y or how. Many programmers does it take to change a light bulb? None. That's a hardware problem. And why do programmers always mix up Christmas and Halloween? Because October 31 is like December 25. Yeah. And do we already have 5? No, let's go for one more. And now we have 5. And GitHub Copilot was so eager to count for me, because I did not count and it knew that I wanted 5. But now we have 5 jokes that we can provide in our little web API, right? So now obviously we need a random. GitHub Copilot knows that. And obviously we do not want to run on out of bounds with getting our random numbers. So it gives me the random index that has the size, it has the maximum of the size of my jokes list. Perfect. And what I now need to do is to get that joke out of my list attached to that joke model that I have here. Whoops. So now I'm pressing S. And now I restart my little application here. I restart my little application here. Come on. Come on. Yeah, while we're writing, you see how easy that was, right? I basically typed nothing. I just needed to help a little bit with the jokes, because making jokes is a hard task, right? So why not help our little GitHub Copilot helper here? Looks like my application is building, which is good. Going into our application again. And now we have our jokes here. And every time I reload, I have a new joke. That was fairly easy. And this was the easiest way to actually demonstrate how GitHub Copilot is working while you are just trying to do your daily work, working in a file, programming, trying to provide a context with comments, maybe also with additional files that you have opened. And with this, handing over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, if we can switch to my screen. I've got IntelliJ open, and I'm going to show you a little bit about, we're going to go beyond chat completions now. We're actually going to, Copilot completions, code completions, and we're going to talk about chat. So this is IntelliJ. Inside of IntelliJ, I've got just a few plugins installed. Actually have, let's take a little bit slow because of the processing. We've got JetBrains Assistant. That's the AI assistant that we have. And we've got Copilot and a couple others. Where are they? Oh, installed. There it is. I've got the Azure tools for IntelliJ, GitHub Copilot, and JetBrains, basically. When I go into my code now, I can use Copilot Chat. And there's 2 things I can do. There's Copilot Chat and there's Copilot Edits. Inside of Copilot Chat, I can ask Copilot. It uses the context of whatever I have here, or I can actually add a context here. So I can add the pom.xml in there and hit enter. And once that's in there, then I can ask questions about this. And I'll say, is there anything wrong with this file? I don't have to tell it what it is or anything. It'll just figure it out. And I can even misspell it wrong with this file. And what it's going to do is actually going to look through the file. Yeah, and there's actually several problems. And by the way, I didn't cause these problems, but anybody who knows anything about Java and POMs or anything else might just notice something here. There's a dependency, and then it goes into this name and properties and version. A little bit of a problem here. And so there are several things it went through. It analyzed the whole POM, So basically there was something here just got dropped in the middle of the dependencies, and it basically screwed it up. But what it's done now is it's actually created a version of this that I could use. And the options I have for actually using this are, I go to the bottom here. I go down to the bottom here. I can actually copy and paste this and just put it into my chat if I want to. I can also, you can just insert the code block at the current cursor. So I could actually just select all of this. I could say insert code block at cursor, and it actually inserts the whole thing for me, but I actually don't want to do that. So let's undo that. Okay, so we'll take it back to its original broken form. We also have edits. So edits gives you a few extra options. Now, both of these have access to all of these large language models. I use Claude 3.7 Sonnet because it tends to be the best one. But GPT-4o is pretty good as well, and GPT-4.5 is really good too. In fact, you can use this for generating a prompt that you're going to use with 3.7 and generate the code if you're doing actual code generation. So the difference between Copilot edits is I can actually ask it the same question. Wrong with this file. And it will actually proceed to edit the file. Oh, I didn't add the file yet. Yes. So this is something that's kind of a limitation here. It doesn't actually pick up the context of what you're doing right now. You have to manually add this, hit enter, and then ask again, what's wrong with this file? And this time, it just takes a second. At least I hope it takes a second. Sometimes it takes a little longer because we're live streaming as well. I'm going to blame the equipment. That's what I like to do. So it's going to go through here basically. Let's see. And it's going to make changes directly to the file and ask me if I want to keep them. So I can accept these changes here. It tells me again what's wrong with the file, et cetera, et cetera. I can accept this, and I can accept the changes, and actually updates the file for me. And as you can see, it actually changed a few things, and then I can save this file or exit out of it again as well. So that's something slightly more convenient. And I'll kick it back to Julia, who's going to show you some even cooler stuff in VS Code.
Thank you, Brian. This was also already super impressive. Let's go into another browser, another IDE that we love, which is Visual Studio Code. I hope you can see my Visual Studio Code. And as you can see, this is the same project we have been working on the whole time, basically. And there's a lot of times where I, as a developer, get basically drawn into a project or get assigned a task that I do not really know, right? And especially when it's a legacy project, it might be, for me, hard to see what is actually going on in this kind of project. So it's super cool that I can now ask GitHub Copilot to give me an actual hint what is going on in that project. You see, I am in VS Code Insiders here currently, and I have a lot of actual parameters that I can give to GitHub Copilot to help me do my task. As you might notice, I have multiple things that I can do. I can just ask a question, as we know already from ChatGPT or github.com/copilot. I can go into the edit mode Brian just showed you, or I can also go into the agent mode, which I will show you in a bit. And I can have also so many models that I can actually choose from. And what is also new is that you can now also bring your own models. So when you have very specific programming needs, you have a very, very opinionated Java framework that you're working with in your organization, for example, GitHub Copilot is also there for the rescue. But for now, get back to our task. What is actually going on in this project? So, and now I use the add workspace command, which basically already enables an agent. So an autonomous AI with certain kind of, that is embedded in certain kind of coding capabilities to support me. And I can now ask, what is going on in this in this project here. As you can see, I'm also using Claude because with the tests that I made in the last weeks, I am pretty impressed how good, fast, and efficient it is, especially in these coding tasks. And as you can see, the add workspace command is now starting working here. It basically says that it considers the whole workspace I have just currently open in my Visual Studio Code. And it now starts to collect information that might be useful for me to understand what is going on in this project. And it is indeed right. This is like an old project where we show in the Azure sample how to actually implement the MSAL library, which is the Microsoft Identity Library in Java projects. You can see it is based on Java 8. It has like some web ends to sign in for users. We have some kind of readmes. We know from these readme how to actually configure Azure AD. So it's a tutorial project, right? But what is unfortunate is that it is in Java 8. And what I usually want to do is obviously work in modern kind of Java applications, right? So what I could now do is give it like this whole project, and it's not a small project, to actually convert it for me to Java 21. But this is maybe a little bit too much for this demo. The first thing I will now do is switch to agent mode. And then I provide context. And what I will now do, I can just also provide context on folder basis. And what I only want to convert for now is the Spring Web App. So I give a very dedicated context, what I want to do in agent mode with the model I've chosen. And now I can ask, can you convert me this project or this folder, being like precise when talking to the AI, to Java 21. Ignore documentation updates for now. And now I just press enter. And now GitHub Copilot goes in this kind of agent mode. So it is autonomous in some kind of way. I basically provided it the context, the project I'm actually working on, and especially the folder with the Spring Web App here. And I gave it a task, a dedicated task. And now it starts to actually work autonomously on its own. And it basically does that how we as developers would do it, right? At first, when we are thrown onto a new task or a new project, we analyze what is going on in front of us. What resources do I actually have? What do I then need to do? It then makes me a plan. And as you can see, every time it gives me hints what it's actually doing. So it's fully transparent to me what GitHub Copilot is currently doing. It helps me to update to Java 21. At first, it checks up if there are any, the POM files, what is defined there. And as you can see, it already starts editing. This is kind of similar to what you already saw in Brian's demo. It now picks up every single file that it thinks should be updated and modified. And the first thing that it made was creating changing the POM, just going from Java 17 to going to Java 21. And then it says me, hey, I found 29 more POM files actually across the whole project that needs to be updated to Java 21. I will update the rest then later. And it gives me basically also every file that it is actually touched, so that I have all the time the full transparency what GitHub Copilot is actually doing, and it shows me the changes in the typical way how we see it when we compare changes, how we made them in Git, right? And then I can decide for basically every file if I want to keep this change or if I want to undo these changes. And as you can see, it's continuing working, giving me hints here and there, what actually also needs additional to be done. It tells me here, hey, Spring Boot is also updated. We need to update it to Spring Boot 3.2.4 to actually work better with Java 21. So it's also doing that. And it starts to basically list me all the changes here on the side that I see which files have been changed. And it opens every file that it actually changes. So I can also go through the files and look very dedicated what has actually been changed. And as you can see, I'm doing absolutely nothing, right? I'm just explaining to all to you what is currently going on in my Visual Studio Code. In the end, when we open the pull request, or when we accept these changes from GitHub Copilot and open the pull request, obviously we as Java developers, we are still responsible that the code we provided is right. It follows security standards, it follows the standards of our organization. So don't fully rely on AI, but as you can see, it's super convenient to giving me the first hint what actually needs to be done here. And we could now start it for a lot. I think it will go on for at least 5 or 10 more minutes, but we're running a little bit out of time. So I will stop sharing my screen for now. And I think we are then here open for questions, if you have some.
I got to say, it's awesome the way it builds things. And yeah, I mean, there's been all kinds of things, people have a lot of discussions right now about how, is this going to replace coders and, things like that. And, it might someday. For now, it's not. And I think you do have to have experience with the code so that you can look at the code and find out if it's actually leading you astray or not. That's generally my experience with the code generation. So, yeah.
Yeah, we always need to be mindful, right? AI can be wrong, and we need to be aware of that. And when you cannot decide if this is right or wrong, what AI is generating, you should maybe focus not so on the AI, but on your skills first to be able to know if what AI is generating is actually right.
100%.
Okay, we do have some questions in the chat. So amazing presentation. So thanks already and good demos. So one question is, does Copilot have a persistent memory like GPT Plus has with projects so that it can learn about context? And how can we work on multiple files? Julia.
Actually, it does have not. So every time when you're giving like a prompt or a code into GitHub Copilot, it does not remember it all the way. It just uses the information you provided to generate you for the next thing that you're doing, the suggestions, but it's not saving anything at all. This is a little bit different if you use GitHub Copilot in the combination with GitHub, the platform itself, where you can store information. Then GitHub Copilot can also use these informations to generate you more insightful results for your projects.
Yeah, I'll add to that. When you're in the agent mode, what happens is it updates some files. It asks you if you want to keep them or not. And then there's a little button that says done. If you hit done, it loses the context of everything you've been discussing so far. It will keep it until that point. But after that, you're starting over again. Because people are not always aware of this, that large language models themselves have no context or no memory. They rely on the applications that call the large language models to actually keep the context and share information that's relevant for the query. Sometimes it sends a million. That's why these huge numbers of parameters are really important, because it actually sends large parameters to the large language model and keeps the context that way, so it gets reliable answers sometimes. Yeah, very cool.
Okay. And then somebody shared that the way how Copilot helps writing Git commits is amazing. I think we all agree here. And just another question, is Agile new, and when will it come to the other IDEs? Can you share something about that, Brian?
They're rolling it out all the time. I don't have any insight into the timeline, but right now it's in VS Code. It's going to come to IntelliJ next, and then Eclipse after that. So, just keep your eye out for it. I don't honestly know when it'll be rolled out. So,
I heard, or I'm pretty sure it will be there before build. So everyone promised me it's before build. Might be a bit earlier. So build is end of May. So it's going to be exciting time, and soon we will have like feature comparability with all the 3 IDEs. And Julia, can you share, if I don't see agent mode, is there a setting I can find to enable it already if it hasn't rolled out to me yet?
What you can always do is using Visual Studio Code insiders. There, the changes land usually the first. But if you do not see it already, when you're especially working when you're in an enterprise environment, just be a little bit patient for the next 2 weeks. It will probably land in your IDE soon.
Okay, so good tip, just switch to the insiders version, or you can find it maybe in
If
the
you
settings.
if you want to always play with the newest, coolest changes, the insiders versions of Visual Studio Code is the way to go.
Oh, my cat is also amazed.
Chandra's cat
Yeah.
agrees.
You have to introduce the cat if the cat is there. So I don't make the rule.
It's the time to appear, right? So thank you so much. The demo has been amazing. I can't wait to update all my old Java versions. And I also love the fact that things take a while again. Like back in those days where I did product development, I always had those time when, we ran the test and we did quality analysis and, we had those 10 to 13 minutes where we could play table soccer games and other cool things. And now with those agents, which also take a little bit of time, we might get those timings back where we can actually do something aside, because I really felt it was helpful for the work culture. You were also able to ask questions. So, and it's in the end, it's like, it's leading into such a good, more effective way of updating things, because the projects I updated in the past, it took us days, weeks, or even months to update. Hopefully not years, but yeah, still much longer than just the agent. It's finished now, right, Julia?
Let me check in
Right.
the background. Yeah, it's actually finished while we're talking. It edited 21 files.
Wow. Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, so thanks so much. I will have to kick you out on the stage because we will have Lisa waiting for us.
Hi.
Hey, always so good to see you.
So good to see you too, and your cat.
Do you want to give a short introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lisa. I'm one of the collaborators of the LangChain4j framework, so that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm also working for a company, Naboo.ai, where we make a nice developer tool that would actually fit in very nicely with what we just saw, where it gets all your context, but not just from your code, but also from your Jira tickets and your GitHub and your Confluence pages, whatever, for what you're working on. So it's a super nice addition. Yeah,
it's amazing to see what's being built with AI, with the help of AI, and also how products are like using it, but also extending it with other great features to make us even more productive at work and with coding. Okay, then the stage is yours with your session.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm really happy I can present today the next level features of LangChain4j. Last year, I did a basic introduction. I don't have time today to jump into the basics, but I will just quickly tell you what it's about for the people that don't know. So LangChain4j allows you to talk to models really easily from Java. And we see the models, we just use them via an API. So we don't have to care about being data scientists or this data ML ops. We just say in the DevOps space, and we make it really easy to talk to the models. So it's not about training. It's all about using models, audio models, image models, large language models. So you see a couple. We support Azure, OpenAI, Gemini, Hugging Face, but also local models via Olama and via Docker Model Runner also. And so if you want to see what we support, you can go to the link there, github.com langchain4j/langchain4j. I'm there just quickly showing you. If you scroll down to the README, you will find here a table with all the providers we support, also embedding stores if you're interested in using that. We have examples, which I would really recommend to go see, documentation. So it's all here in your README, whatever you will need. Now, we don't only make it easy to talk to models, we also provide a lot of functionality around large language models. So if we say a basic large language model would be the user sending a user message to the large language model and the large language model replying, which we call AI message. That's the basic core node there. I'm using all the LangChain4j API names or object names, so then you're good right away. Now, we also support augmented LLMs, so that's everything you see around there. So system message that sets instructions for the model how to behave or what to do. Chat memory, because you heard it before, Brian said models are stateless. They won't remember what you said just before. So we have to provide them with this memory management ourselves, and LangChain4j makes that really a breeze to do. Then you see the content retrievers down there. So sometimes your LLM is not being trained on what the weather is going to be tomorrow, or your internal policies for your company, things like that. So you can fetch pieces of content that would be relevant to the question in documents, from the web, from a database, and also LangChain4j makes it really smooth. And then this is given along to the model so it can give a more informed answer. And then the last one is my favorite, a bit dangerous, but so much fun. Tool calling or function calling. So LLMs are capable to know when to call a method when we provide it. We say, oh, you have a method to check my emails, send emails, for example. And a model will understand from what you tell it when is a good moment to call those with the right parameters. If you want to learn more about the basics, go to LangChain4j-examples on GitHub. It's also linked in that README that I just showed you. And there's a folder tutorials. I think like in 1 or 2 hours, you're through and you will know how to do all the things I mentioned above. So definitely do it if you don't know the basics yet. But now, up to the next level features. So to demonstrate you our next level feature that we built like over the last year, I made an application together with Mohammed Ait Abderrahman. And we were thinking how it would be a nice demo. Maybe one of the problems with AI is that the training data is kind of limited, and also it knows everything we humans know, but nothing more. So what if we could make it do inventions so it actually expands its knowledge? So we aimed here at level 4 of this ladder towards artificial general intelligence, with a wink, of course. So how does it go when humans make discoveries? Because that's how we modeled our app. First, it's like the problem. What don't we know yet? We're going to go look in, like when you're doing research in the scientific literature, like what do we already know about this problem? And with those two things together, you will design an experiment that should give you an answer to your question. You're going to run the experiment, typically in a lab by doing a survey, by really doing something. And then you're going to analyze the results, pull a conclusion, and then publish these results, very important, so the knowledge base gets extended for the next person that comes with a new question. We trimmed it down a bit from a general genius researcher to just antibody drug discovery. And yeah, we trimmed it down really much more just to show you a bit what cool features we have to make your app enterprise ready. So a very quick intro on antibody drug discovery. Our immune system works like this. You have this disease cell, the red one, and it has markers on its surface that our immune system can recognize, called antigens, doesn't matter. And then our antibodies, that's part of our immune system, they recognize these and they bind. It looks a bit like this. And once our antibodies have bound to the disease, they signal that it's up for destruction and our body takes care of removing it. That's how we fight diseases, typically. But some diseases our body doesn't manage to recognize. So that's where engineered antibodies come in. It's really cool because these days we are solving types of cancer that we have no remedies for yet. Really exciting field to work in. So what we have to do to make an engineered antibody, a lot of things, but it boils down to finding the right sequence that will fit on this disease sequence. So we broke our app down in 7 steps. It doesn't exactly matter, but it's like you choose a disease together with the app that would be a good target. You check what this disease looks like and how to recognize it. You see if there's already known things that will bind, and then you'll design a new one. You'll test how well it works, because once we design a new one, we want to know if it's toxic to humans, how well will it bind, is it stable once we inject it, things like that. So we measure these typically in the lab, and then we're going to publish our article. Good. How do we do this? There's 2 options to make such a state machine, or like to go through all these steps, basically. It's you let the LLM handle the state machine. So you just tell it has to run through all the steps and you give it all the tools and context it could possibly need. That's actually an okay approach for simple projects because it's very flexible and you don't have to program much. You just write that it has to run through the steps. It's very flexible, but it's very unreliable. You are not sure that this LLM will run through it in the right order. To show you what this version looks like in code. So you will find this also if you look into our project. If you're interested, I will share the link later. Then you can have a look for yourself. So this is an AI service, a LangChain4j concept of such an augmented LLM, and I will show you what the different parts are. So the system message is the instruction saying, yeah, you're an AI researcher and you have to run through all these steps with the user. Here are tools the model can use, and as you see, there's many. So there are classes with multiple tools inside. And because there's so many, it's very confusing to the model in this case, because we have too much actually. And then the retrieval augmenter has a lot of content retrievers in there where our AI service can pull in extra information, for example, from scientific literature or from databases. As you can see, it's a lot for one model to handle, and it's going to be confused and probably not do this correctly. But again, for simple services, you may go for this. The other option is to build a code state machine and plug in AI services or augmented LLMs inside. The nice thing is you can go as complex as you want, but it is more work to program. And also, if you forget to program certain backpaths, it's not flexible as the LLM. Like if I want to change my disease halfway my project, an LLM will know to start back from zero. If I forgot to program it in my state machine, it will be very confused and not know what to do. So to show you the advantages of coding your state machine, I have here a flow where an AI assistant will help you through a shopping workflow from selecting products to placing your order. So for example, you want place order to be only called after the basket is verified by the user and not optionally after it. So you don't want to tell the LLM, yeah, just do it after, because maybe 1 out of 10 it will not. If you code it, there's no way you get to place an order without the basket being verified. Another thing, once you place the order, which is a costly operation, you want actually human confirmation that it actually should go through with this. So then you use a human as a tool, or human in the loop. I like these terms. It just means like you let your human decide something or choose yes or no, continue. And again, you write this in code, so the LLM cannot skip it. There are other parts like calculate the total price that you want to have executed with code, not with an LLM. And by wrapping it like this, you just ensure that this step is going to happen with code. Another advantage is then that the LLMs you need for these smaller steps with less tools, with less responsibilities, they can be smaller models. Smaller means also cheaper and faster. Good. I show you how this looks like in code because I actually find it very important that you feel like you can do this at home, because you can. So these are our 7 steps, and one part of our code is actually where we receive the message from the front end. We're going to check. It's like a big if, or you use a while switch, sorry. But so for every incoming message, you just check in which step we currently were. So here we're in define disease, and then we're gonna call our disease picker AI service. Once we're in find antigen step, we will call the AI service that go with that. That's how simple it is. And then I show you how actually these objects work and bump you to the next state. So the first step is choosing a disease, which is chatting, right? You want to spar a bit with the AI to see which disease you want to choose. So this service should have a memory. We don't need RAG. We don't need extra content because we're just sparring. And we need the tools store disease name, which will store this on our stateful object that will actually keep everything we found in the project. And in code, that would look like this. So this one is just you help the user to choose a disease. And once he has chosen, you're going to store the disease name. Here, the memory ID means that there is memory to this little chat. And here you see the tools for disease picker. Now, how do we get to the next step? So once we're, after a bit of chatting, sure, we picked a disease. That's with the tool store disease name. And there you see not only will it store the disease name on our research project object, but it will also bump us to the next step, being find antigen. And so next time the user sends something back, it will be in the next step. Then step 2, for example, finding an antigen is actually not a chat. This is just once a disease is picked, actually we want our agent to figure out what it looks like, what the sequence of it is. We don't want to chat, so we will have no memory, but we will have retrieval augmented generation because we will want it to go search in documents that describe this. And then it has some tools to find the sequence and to, again, store antigen info, which will, again, bump it to the next step. So what you see here is the tools for the antigen finder and the retrieval augmenter, which is basically this RAG. I will show more about that later. You also see an example of how to use parameters to send parameters to the model. So the real user message that's going to be sent to the model is find a suitable antigen for the disease name, whereas it was just called with disease name. Good, and so on, and so on. A next thing we will need here is advanced RAG. So RAG, retrieval augmented generation, this way to retrieve extra content to let your LLM know what we are talking about, that it maybe didn't have in its training data set. So everybody who's been using RAG, the way we know it with the embedding store and the vectorization, may have noticed that there's a couple of issues. I'm pretty sure you noticed. Some important fragments are not found. Some fragments are found that really have nothing to do with the question, and then they are sent to the LLM, which will try to use them in its answer, and all of a sudden the answer will really make no sense anymore because the fragment of text made no sense. Another issue I ran into while building this application was this. My apps ask me, shall we proceed to the next step, blah, blah, blah. I say, yes, please. And I see in the logs, which you will see later, we have them side by side, so you see what's happening. In the log, I see like, yes, please, a big juicy stew of personal story, funny bits on sex and love and friendship and parenthood. And I was like, what? So what happened here? It took yes, please as the input query, and it went to do a web search. That's what I found. So this is what you really want to avoid in production. So that's why we came up with this advanced RAG, and we wrap the things in a retrieval augmenter. So this is a schematic. I will walk you through it so you understand it, and then show you the code so you know that you can do this at home. So what we had before were content retrievers that would find the relevant content. Now we have multiple ones, and we support out of the box. Everything down here is what implementations that we support out of the box. So we support embedding store for just document chunks, Neo4j for graph RAG, web search, and SQL for relational databases. So you can go search in all these things or write your own. Then we need a query router to choose where actually to send our query to one or more of these retrievers we have. So we store them in a map with annotations. So the model that's in the query router will actually know where to best go search. It will also take care of rewriting your query to something that fits, for example, SQL, when you're going to search in a relational database. Before that, like this would still let the yes, please pass here. So we need a query transformer. What it will do is this. It will take your history and turn yes, please in something like proceed with finding the antigen for this disease or something, so that it's actually a query that makes sense. An expanding query transformer does the same. So it takes this history, it makes something that makes sense, but it makes multiple. So it asks enough questions to be sure to find all the information in the sources. So once you're there, you want to search the right information in the right places. You have all these pieces of content that you need to put together somehow. Default content aggregator will just put one after the other. Re-ranking content aggregator, which I really recommend to use, will look if these pieces of content are actually relevant to the question. So it uses a very small, very fast, very cheap, even I think we even have a free built-in version, a model that will answer this question. Does this piece of content, is this relevant for the question? And if not, it's going to have a low score and you just kick it out. So you're sure only the relevant pieces go make it to your LLM. And then you just put back the user question. You add these pieces of content you found, and then the LLM will give you a better informed answer. Now, it looks pretty complex. What does it look like in code? Here we have 3 content retrievers. So we have a normal embedding store content retriever to search in our literature docs. You can look in the code later to see how this is done. It's also part of our tutorial if you go look there. And once we created this content retriever, we're going to put it in a map. That's very important, and give it a description. So this is scientific literature on diseases, and I mean, it's a longer description, fell off the page. So our model actually knows what it's looking at and where it should search. The second one is web search. So we would also put this in the map and call it web search. That's self-explanatory, except we don't for this application, because we want the search to happen really in the literature and really in our protein databases and not just on the web, because we're doing science. And then the third one is a SQL database content retriever for the proteins. Again, we put it in this map. Once we have this map, we can build this entire augmented retrieval augmenter. So We use a builder. We add the query transformer. It's this compressing query transformer that I told about before. Again, if you look in the code, you see how it's all declared and constructed. After the query transformer, you go to the query router that will choose from this map that's already in there. The content aggregator is the one with a little scoring model to kick out content that has nothing to do with the question. And the content injector just hangs the user message together with these pieces of contents, and with a little, we wanted a little custom message here. Otherwise, you don't need this and you can go with the default. Good. What else? In step number 6, where we measure the performance of the sequence that we built, we want to actually be calling custom models that are like really tailored to biopharma and that can predict how well something binds or how toxic it is. Or we actually want to call someone in the lab to perform the experiment or steer the robotics in the lab, because a lot of things these days are done with robotics. So how do we call another model from one starting LLM, right? So what you see here is one example of what we would call agentic systems or multi-model architectures, where you have an orchestrator model that will dispatch calls to different models, and then a synthesizer model that will make something out of the result before you're ready. If you're interested, agentic models, you can look up this article of Anthropic that shows many of these architectures. Now, how did we do it? The nice thing, LangChain4j lends itself super well to build this kind of architectures, because you can wrap the next call in a tool. And the orchestrator will just know, oh, I can call, for example, we just have a function here that's in our real project, get URL to the structure file. So to show the structure of our sequence. That's all that the model gets to see. So when we ask like, oh yeah, and also give the structure, it knows it. I call this easy for the LLM. But what really happens behind the scene is that we make a real call to Google's AlphaFold, and we get this real structure file, which is complex logic, but we shield it from the LLM by giving it just one clear title. Optionally, you can also give it a description. And so you can build really layers of dispatching by wrapping everything in tools. It's really convenient. Now, if you are curious which model to pick and how strong it has to be for the task you're giving it, how much they cost, I have 2 links here, llmprice.com and livebench.ai, that give you indications about price, model quality. And one last thing that's also important to consider when you're working for a company, data privacy. So maybe you are not allowed to send things to OpenAI or Gemini or Azure. And then you will want to use a local model, some open source model that you can run on local hardware. So keep that in mind and keep a good eye on the terms of use you have when you're using a paying service such as OpenAI, depending on what user data or sensitive data you may be handling. A quick word on the Model Context Protocol, MCP, that you may have heard. It's buzzing all over the place, but I mean, I like it. I totally understand why there's so much buzz. We don't use it in this project, but you should know you can really easily implement this in LangChain4j. It works as follows. So MCP servers are little programs that let you connect or do anything basically in an LLM readable format. So this means it already comes with methods that are already annotated with what variables are needed and what they do. And you just plug them in LangChain4j, and then you can use them. For example, if you want to find some, you can Google GitHub, MCP server, Gmail, and you will find probably multiple projects. And you can just pull those in and use those, so you don't have to write all this tooling yourself anymore. It's, of course, it got so easy to let your models do crazy things. It's also dangerous, right? But just so you know, you can do this also in LangChain4j. Something else we need when building an enterprise application definitely are guardrails. Guardrails, for example, they're needed for this specific app because you could actually build biological weapons if you know what you're doing, from like ChatGPT's 01 on. That's like a real risk. So we want to put some guardrails in place to avoid this happening, but maybe for your company, it's to avoid that people try to hack it or ask questions they shouldn't. Guardrails are there to sanitize the input, so to stop it. It will not even be sent to the LLM if it fails, if it doesn't pass the guardrails. There's also output guardrails that will check what comes out of the model. Maybe it's not according to your company policy or something, and you want to prevent it from being sent back to the user. So we have input guardrails, output guardrails. In code, they look like this. At the moment, they are in Quarkus, but there's a PR open for having them in vanilla LangChain4j, thanks to Eric DeAndrea. It's going to be there very soon, like next month or so. It should be merged, and then you will have them in the vanilla LangChain4j too. They work like this. You can annotate a whole AI service or its method by like this, input guardrails. And here I want to prevent that it lets pass biological weapon creation requests. So what's in this no biological weapon class? That's implementing this input guardrails. And there's a method validate that will return failure if some conditions is not met and otherwise success. When success, then the message goes through. When failure, then it stops right there. And to figure out whether or not it's an attempt to a biological weapon, I made a little AI service. I'm actually using another LLM, but there's, of course, other strategies to do this. But I use another LLM that I give a bunch of examples, like what known antibodies are toxic to humans. That will be a 1, so that's definitely an attempt to create a bioweapon. What is the antigen for this cancer? That's then 0, because clearly you're trying to solve a problem. Good. I think it's demo time, so may the demo gods be with us today. I already spun up this Quarkus application. So let's first try to discuss which disease we want to have. So I will ask what kind of cancers are incurable and really bad? Because, I mean, that's also really where a lot of research is focusing on at the moment. So it passed the input guardrails. That's good, because it was not an attempt. And the one I'm going to pick here is the glioblastoma. It's a brain tumor, a really bad one. Well, speaking and typing, it's hard. So I'm going to say solve it and see what it does. So you see here the logs going. You saw we moved to step 2 because I picked my disease and it got stored. Now green is it's going to search the literature. It says it finds this antigen info. It found it. Yellow is it's calling a tool to find a sequence to store it. Blue, it moved to step 3. Green, it's looking again in the literature. It's calling more tools to store information because it's searching known antibodies in the literature already. So it's going really fast. I don't have much time, so it's good. It's looking again in the literature for the antibodies it found, how well they have performed. So what do we already know, basically? And then it asks me, I found these antibodies and they bind well and they're toxic like this. Which one do you want to continue with? So I'm going to choose cetuximab here. So that's I choose, it stores it, it moves me to step 4. It's going to find information about this antibody, some more. And now it is designing new antibodies. So it's, you see here, design new antibody via Anthropic Claude, which is not a great model to design a new antibody. But we've put it in there to show you how you can let one model call another model. The model we actually wanted to call was Alpha Proteo from Google. That's designed just for that. But we don't have access because we're not a scientific institute, so we just let it return a dummy, right? But the Claude call is real, but then again, Claude is not apt, so it hallucinates everything here. Now it's asking me, would you like to measure how well these designs perform? This is human in the loop. Because this is a costly step to perform these measurements, you're going to call special models that are maybe paying, or you're going to have someone in the lab actually perform this experiment. So that's why I forced in the whole flow that it asked me. And so it says, well, it performs this well. These give back random results. They're not other models, but we could have been calling other models there. And we also have the link to the AlphaFold structure file. There we go. So this is the structure of our disease, and that's this real AlphaFold call that has been made. Now everything was measured. Do we want to publish in Nature or the New York Times? Let's do the New York Times. It's faster, it's funnier. In reality, you go to Nature, of course, and help research for real. Voila. So in a groundbreaking study, Mohammed Software and Lisa Dev, so we created this, we have utilized cutting-edge AI models to design potent antibodies, etc. That's the app. Good. One more thing. We want to be observing what's going on. So LangChain4j exposes a lot of metrics. And then, for example, the number of tokens used, the number of time spent in each step. That's what you see here. And you also want to have proper evaluation in place. And there I would really tell you, use these Quarkus tests. So in LangChain4j itself, we don't have a good solution for non-deterministic testing, but the Quarkus tests are awesome. They made something specifically for this use case. So you give a lot of samples with example input and what you expect as an output. And then you run the tests, 5 concurrent here in this case, and you will, of course, get another output. It's never the same what comes out of an LLM, but we're going to use, for example, a semantic similarity strategy to see how close the output is to what we expected. And they have some other strategies. So do have a look at that. That was it. So the slides are here. Here is the AI researcher repo. So you just look at github.com/liseras, and then you'll find it there. And LangChain4j is right here. And I'm open to questions if there are any.
Wow, great. That was a lot in short time. So thanks for giving me a lot of homework as well. So we do have one interesting question. Is switching between databases or web or AWS S3 for data in same context complex?
So if the question is for the retrievers, it's really easy. So as you could see, I have put all our retrievers together in a big map, and that is my augmented retrieval augmenter. But I can, of course, build a different one for each of my contexts, depending on where I want to use which one. When it's the question to use things as embedding models or even LLMs, it's also super easy. So you just add another dependency to the POM to use that model provider, and then you can swap. The only thing you have to know when you start swapping models in LangChain4j is it's really easy because you don't have to touch anything else in your code, except for example, a model is an OpenAI chat model. You have to change by Anthropic chat model or something, or Azure chat model. But then the parameters, they are different for each model. So if you have specific parameter set, you will have to make sure that they fit in the model provider you're using. All the rest of your code can just say the same.
Yeah, that's really the fact that I love about using a wrapper like LangChain4j. It comes with a lot of cool new features, but also with the ability for me to switch models, try out which one works best for my specific use case. And I'm also not dependent on the AI, on the API to stay the same, since they're not
we take care of that. Yeah. We take care of that for you. Whenever there's updates, we make sure it's supported really, really fast. Exactly.
Thanks, Lisa. It was a wonderful presentation. I'm sure you can also stay a bit in the chat on YouTube for more questions. And I want to have Theo on stage with me. Hey, Theo, you're still muted.
Hello, sorry. Hello.
Is it in the middle of the night for you?
It's not in the middle of the night. It's the middle of the day for me, actually. So.
Oh, perfect. So we're in good time zones for you. I want the link for the survey again, because we're really keen to hear for your feedback, like for other attendees. Yeah, there it is. So please share your feedback for the overall JDConf, but also for the sessions in particular. We still have this kind of fun battle who's the best speaker we have here today. And Theo, you have Spring AI with you today.
I do.
Yeah. And you're also talking about Cosmos DB. Why is that? So what are you doing at Microsoft?
Yeah, so I'm a PM in the Microsoft, in the Cosmos DB team. Let me share my my screen and get into it there. So yeah, I'm a PM in the Cosmos DB team. I focus mainly on AI, programmability, and developer experience for Cosmos DB. And I contributed the vector store integration for Spring AI for Cosmos DB. So originally it was going to be called Powering Spring AI with RAG and NoSQL. But I changed the title because I wanted to make it more generic, because I think Spring AI is a cool thing to build AI apps with for Java. So that's I've made an impossible task of just showing everything about building AI apps with Java and Spring AI in 25 minutes, which we'll see if I manage to do that.
Okay, I will leave you to this, to making the impossible possible. Have fun.
All right, so yeah, building AI apps with Java and Cosmos DB. A few assumptions that I've made. You're a Java developer, a pretty good assumption if you join this session. You have little experience or maybe zero experience building AI apps, and maybe you want a crash course and you've not used Cosmos DB, but you're open to it. So if all of those things are true, hopefully you get a lot out of this session. Even if none of them are true, I saw the session before. There's quite a lot of stuff there. If all of that was familiar to you, then maybe this is going back to basics, but hopefully you'll still get something out of the session. So what skills does one need to build AI apps? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, you need proficiency in Python programming. You also need to be a machine learning expert, preferably with a PhD and published, 5, 6, 7 papers in scientific journals. And of course, you want skills in data processing and data management. Of course, this is not completely true. Although our central Java team here at Microsoft did some research recently, and apparently 90% of Java developers that they interviewed thought that this was true. So I just wanted to bust that myth straight away. Of course, skills in data processing and data management is pretty much useful for building any app. So you pretty much need the same skills that you need for building any app to build an AI app, in my opinion. Of course, there's some new concepts to learn, but you don't need to be a Python expert. You don't need to be a machine learning expert. Of course, there are frameworks in Java, some very good frameworks, not least of which is Spring AI. It may help for me to define what I mean by AI apps. Of course, I'm talking about applications that use large language models. That's the state of the art. This obviously is a very disruptive technology, as everybody knows, and we're going to be looking at GPTs here for an OpenAI deployed in Azure OpenAI. Of course, there's lots of different derivatives, as everybody has heard of by now, but that's what I'm going to choose for this session. So why Azure Cosmos DB for AI apps? Cosmos DB may not be something that you're very familiar with. So warning, a little bit of a sales pitch here. The biggest reason, the most facile reason I can give, of course, is that ChatGPT uses Cosmos DB to scale and to store its chat data. So I suppose I could say if it's good enough for OpenAI, maybe it's good enough for you. And also the largest Azure Cosmos DB workloads, if you're developing in Java, run on Java. So it's heavily used by Java customers, and the Java SDK for Cosmos DB is very battle tested. So if you are a Java developer building in Azure or thinking about building in Azure, Cosmos DB would be a pretty good place to go, especially if you're building scalable enterprise applications and you're building AI apps as well. A few less hand-wavy reasons for choosing Cosmos DB for AI apps. Of course, it's general purpose. It's very cost-effective. It has guaranteed SLA-backed low latency. It's still the only database service in the world, as far as I'm aware, that provides this. It's schemaless for flexibility. In the world of LLMs, this is going to be very important because, of course, LLMs are much better at interpolating changes to schema dynamically than traditional application architectures and contexts and so on. So schemaless databases are going to be winning there. Cosmos DB allows you to keep transactions and vectors stored together. Vectors are what's used for retrieval augmented generation, which you heard about in the previous session if you were there. If not, I'll explain it and go back to basics, as I said. And in a lot of cases, vector stores are only being used as vector stores, but in Cosmos DB, you can use it as a transactional store and a vector store at the same time in the same place, which is very useful in a number of scenarios. And of course, it has some of the features that you would expect, full text search, hybrid search, and more features coming along. And of course, it's highly scalable and so on. That's enough of the sales pitch for Cosmos DB. Let's get back to AI and building AI apps with LLMs in Java and Spring AI. There's a lot of patterns. You heard about some of them there. You heard about LangChain for J earlier, and some of the patterns were covered. If you're a beginner, if you're coming at this new and this is kind of making your head spin, I think the easiest way to get into the patterns and why and what they mean is to just understand why they're important. And by the time I've gotten through this, it will seem very obvious, but sometimes it's helpful to bring obvious things from the back of your mind to the front of your mind. And I'm going to do this in a kind of fun way, using a fun analogy and opening with a slightly controversial quote. LLMs perform diffused information retrieval given a prompt. They are basically databases. Indeed, a new form of database. That was something that Tim Scarf, a former colleague, used to work at Microsoft over here, and has since then gone on to found Machine Learning Street Talk, which is the #1 most subscribed YouTube channel for machine learning, believe it or not. And he came out with this on social media somewhere, and I happened to catch it. Pretty controversial statement. It doesn't really matter whether you believe that's true or whether you agree that it's true. It kind of helps in this analogy. And if we run with that analogy and we just compare the old and new quote unquote databases, traditional databases, of course, if you want to get anything out of them, you need to use a highly structured and rigid query language as input, some SQL or some derivative of SQL. And you get 100% accurate and deterministic outputs. With the LLM, the new quote unquote database, of course, inputs queries are highly flexible. Indeed, human language, you can just type in anything that you want in there. And what you get, although it's not 100% accurate and deterministic, as many who've tried ChatGPT and things like it have seen, it's often very close. And this can be fine-tuned in order to get the responses you want. And most of the game that we're playing here with all of these patterns is really about fine-tuning of output accuracy and predictability. And that's one of the primary goals of all the emergent patterns, pretty much. Not the only goal, but it's really at the forefront. And so it's the trade-off really between input flexibility that you get, which is obviously very impressive, versus output accuracy and predictability. And what this ends up translating to day to day as you're building these experiences is how much code you write versus letting the LLM do all of the work, which I know can be a scary concept if you're a developer, letting AI just do everything. But I'm sure you must have thought this, and I definitely have in the past, and certainly when I was first looking at these things. Why don't I just put the URL to ChatGPT in an iframe and just change the title and let it do its thing? And will it do enough? And to be honest, in a lot of cases, a lot of apps out there, they're not actually doing much more than that. They're just consuming OpenAI's API layer and adding some prompts that are specific to a certain scenario. And the LLM is doing most of everything else in that case. And that can work in some scenarios, but in other scenarios, it won't. And all of these patterns are about balancing the trade-off when you need things to be more accurate, more appropriate, more predictable, and so on. So with that in mind, it should be easy then, without me explaining all of the patterns, to understand what they're driving at. I've just called out 5 of the top most popular patterns that are talked about and used often today. Tool use function calling, you saw an example of it before there in the LangChain session. This is where the framework is going to tell the LLM to generate code in real time that is able to dynamically call a function that you have defined up front. So the goal here is you define a function, you know its behavior, it expects certain parameters. As long as the LLM can pass those parameters to your function, you know what to expect from the function. In other words, it's deterministic. The behavior is known and accurate. And so again, it's the same with all of these patterns. That's what you're trying to do in that case. Retrieval augmented generation, what I like to call spoon feeding the LLM. If you ask a question of an LLM, you'll obviously get a response that's based on its own internal training data set, which is vast. The more data that is being scanned and scoured internally, the higher the probability that you'll give you the wrong answer, obviously. So if you direct it more pointedly to some data that bears a close relationship between the question that you're asking, of course, it's going to be more likely to be accurate. Again, same thing. We're trying to balance deterministic behavior and accuracy versus more creativity and let's say more random behavior that you might get out of the box with the LLM. Context augmented generation, or CAG. We do like creating complicated acronyms, don't we, for things that should be simple. So also known as chat memory. So most implementations are doing this now, storing the responses and the chats that were previous, and then feeding that into the context of the LLM. So again, it's giving you a more appropriate accurate response. Multi-agent systems is probably bears a little bit more talking about, also known as agent specialization. The more prompts you give to an LLM and the more tools you enable it to consume, then again, like with the data in its own internal training data set, the higher the probability that you may get a response that isn't appropriate or accurate and so on. If you tightly constrain the LLM to a certain small prompt with a small set of instructions and a small number of tools or functions that it can call, the more likely you're going to get an accurate response in that context. And if it can't handle that context, it just hands off to another agent, and that's pretty much what multi-agent systems are about. And then there's chain of thought reasoning, and there's a bunch of other patterns and techniques as well. I just picked what seemed to be, I think, the most popular. And at least these top 4 we'll cover in this one demo that I'm going to show. So hopefully that will uncover something. So I created a bit of a multi-agent sample with Spring AI. Spring AI itself doesn't give you a multi-agent orchestration framework like some other frameworks do, like LangChain and semantic kernel and so on. Rather, what it gives you is the building blocks to create your own, and that's exactly what I've done in this sample using Cosmos DB, as well as both the chat store and a transactional store and a vector store as well. So high level, how it works, you have a UI and a CLI kind of program that you can run as well, and a data loader that just loads some vector data and also some transactional data as well. Well, just a single record for the user. And then there's an API layer, a multi-agent controller. It's a Spring Boot application that will call a service layer that is consuming an agent orchestrator where we have agents loaded and defined that can do different tasks and so on. So the key class in this sample is going to be this thing called Agent Orchestrator. I stripped out some of the dependency injection stuff here, and pre-invocation logic and response wiring logic, because the main thing really where the magic is done is with the chat client that is an abstraction out of Spring AI that allows you to call a bunch of methods that are able to do some pretty cool stuff. And in this class, you can pretty much see all of these patterns in one place being implemented. Tool use, you can pass an array of tools. I'll show those later as I'm going through the sample. And in this case, I'm also passing in a tool that is able to do retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, and injected as a tool that one of the agents is able to call. Of course, passing in chat memory. In this case, it's what's known as long-term chat memory, because we're storing it in Cosmos DB, a database, so it can be kept there indefinitely and retrieved indefinitely at any point in time when the user wants to come back and carry on the conversation. And then, of course, the agent orchestrator is able to define specialized agents, register them with circumscribed prompts and different tools that it can call in each case, and then it can hand off and so on. How an agent is defined in this sample, pretty simple: an agent name, a prompt that is going to define what it can do, a list of tools that it can call, and a list of other agents that it can route to. And then this is how one agent might be defined using that record. And so you just got a prompt in there. And then in this case, it is able to do a product search, passing in the vector store object, which is abstracted in Spring AI and integrated with Cosmos DB. So just a little, just keep it really simple of how RAG works. I think you probably know by now if you've listened to that earlier session, but if you don't, there's no reason to overcomplicate it. A user question comes in the form of text. It's vectorized or turned into a numerical representation. That numeric is used to search against a preloaded vector store of data that you want to be searched, and a similarity algorithm, a mathematical similarity algorithm, whether it be cosine or Euclidean distance or whatever, is used to determine what vectors in your store are closest in mathematical distance to the input that you've provided, and then whatever comes out is rank ordered and passed into the chat completion API. In this case, it's OpenAI's chat completion API, and that is used to formulate a response. So like I said, you're spoon feeding the LLM instead of letting it direct the question to its massive internal training data set, you're saying, no, look at this, and we're just plugging in the logic to do the search and then passing in the output and along with the context and the question. So nothing complicated there. All right, so demo time. I did record a demo just in case everything goes wrong. So if this screws up, I'll default to that. So the entry point here is going to be this multi-agent controller, which defines an API that can be called, the most important of which is going to be this completion API. But before I go through that, I just want to show the config here. This is a Spring Boot application. As I said, there's a bunch of beans that I'm defining here. Now, if you were to go to the instructions on the Spring AI website of how to wire up the vector store for Cosmos DB, you'd find this, and it will be showing you to define a bean here with Cosmos client and everything here, and that's fine. But what I've done here actually is just define the Cosmos client bean separately, and the reason for that is, in this case, I'm using Cosmos DB both as a vector store and as a transactional store. So I've used Spring Data to define a bunch of entities here. And notice I've defined the product entity as an entity that is I'm using it in my transactional store, but it is also defined as my vector store up here. Where is it? Is it down here? Yeah. So what you'll find when you exploring different frameworks is many of them will assume that the and it's a transactional. So in this case, it's both a product catalog, because I want to check when I'm doing orders with my order item class here, I'm going to be checking against the product entity, whether that product exists, but also when my agent that is able to search for product information, I want it to also be able to search the product container for information and use vector search to be able to do that. So in my product catalog, I have information about the product, but I also have embedding of the product description, so that that can be used for vector search at the same time as well. So that's that. Notice, I mean, you heard about it before as well, but Spring AI has the same feature. Various methods have a tool decorator. Anything that you mark with having this tool annotation, that's signifying to Spring AI that I want to be able to, the LLM to be able to generate code dynamically that can call these methods. And then when you are defining your agents, which you, in this sample, we're doing in this multi-agent service, you'll see here in the prompts things like, yeah, then call order item tool passing user ID and item ID. If I haven't flagged it as a tool that can be called, then this wouldn't go anywhere. But because I have, then I can give a hint and say that this is what you want to do, and then it will do that and pass in those parameters and so on. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to show. I mean, just go quickly to the Cosmos account. I have the product here, and I just have one record in here for my user, and I have nothing in purchase history because it is going to do all of that for me. And the LLM is going to call various tools via the framework. It's going to hand off between different agents as well. Oh yeah, one thing I do want to mention as well, and this is a kind of like an example in real time, I guess, of this concept of trading off between actually hand cranking code and letting the LLM do everything. I think you heard a little bit mentioned about this or touched upon in the previous session about using an LLM for routing, either by tool calling or just by using the LLM to just determine which agent should be called next in the multi-agent scenario. Now, all of this logic here that you see before and after the call to chat client, I could have actually just used this agent routing sample and called that and let the LLM determine which agent to go to in every single turn in the conversation. But from my point of view, and at least from my observation, when things get complicated and if it's not so clear which agent should be routed to, sometimes that can go wrong and you can get into an infinite loop. So I thought, at least if I know which agent has responded to the last message, I want to deterministically route back to that agent, right? I don't want to rely on the LLM because everything the LLM does is not deterministic. It's probability based, and it might not be predictable, and it might not be accurate. So I want to control that. So this is a case of where I'm, trading off on spending extra time writing code. And of course, what did I have to do? I had to create an agent transfer class. I had to define a bunch of tools that are going to be called by each agent to transfer between agents. And then when I know the agent, then I'm going to store the active agent in a chat session container within Cosmos DB, and then update that each time the agent changes. So when I know what the last agent was, I can route back deterministically to that agent without relying on the LLM to do that. And that's okay. And there may be other scenarios, is all I'm saying, where you want to do that because you see a certain behavior that in that context and in that scenario and in that use case, you want that to be deterministic. So you don't want to rely on the LLM for whatever reason. There you might hand crank what is happening. But I would say, as a general rule for building these kind of apps, start from the point of view of let's see what the LLM can do. Let's see how much it can do in this scenario with just some simple prompting, and then build around that. Is probably a decent rule of thumb to start with, at least. All right, enough talking. Well, I'm still going to be talking, but let's start actually demoing this thing. So I'm firing this thing up. Hopefully I don't get any issues. May the demo gods be with me also. Okay, looks like it started up fine. So let me go and find this here. And first of all, I'm just going to say, tell me about your smartphone products. And what I expected to be doing in the background is first, this because it's the first chat that I've done, it's going to be routing straight to the product agent. Yes, it has, and it's going to straight away do a vector search and come out with some results. You can see there the query happening. That's output from the vector search implementation behind the scenes in Spring AI. Didn't need to do anything except define the calls to it, and we see the code for that in here. I just passed in the vector store object. You can, the sample is publicly available on GitHub, by the way. So if anything you want to look into, we'll share the link at the end. Just calling similarity search is very simple, but it's a tool that the LLM has dynamically invoked as part of this process. So let me go back and see, okay, which one do I want? I want the LG phone. Transferred you to the sales agent to proceed with the ordering. That's right. I need your user ID. So first, let's go and see my product purchase history. It hasn't done anything yet. User ID 1. Shall I go ahead? Yeah, I pretty much already said yes, but okay, non-deterministic. Your order has been successfully placed. Did it do it correctly? Let's see. And there we go. I changed my mind. Tell you what, I want a refund. A refund. Is it going to give me a refund straight away? Oh no, it's transferring me to the refunds agent. Yes, confirmed. There we go. And hopefully this should now say, yeah, date of refund. All right, and that's pretty much all I had to show on this one. I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I guess last thing that I promised was, there's the link. If you want to try the sample, definitely encourage contributions or questions about it. Only published a couple of days ago, so please try it out. I'm happy to take questions if we've got any time left.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we do have a bit of time left, like a minute or something. So there's a question. If Cosmos DB is used for chat memory, can Azure OpenAI consult this rather than chat context having to be passed with each request, which of course increases the tokens consumed with each exchange? I'm not 100% sure what does this question mean. Like, do we have any secretly added Azure OpenAI, or what do you mean?
That's a really interesting question, actually. Couldn't OpenAI just do this automatically? Since OpenAI is already using Cosmos DB, it's a very good question. Maybe for the future. I think more where the question sounds like to me, more where the question is going is, isn't this just abstracted into some framework at least or somewhere? And the answer is yes, it could be, and in the future will be, at least for Spring AI and other frameworks like LangChain for J, will be embedding, baking this into those frameworks so that it's not something that you have to wire up yourself. It sounded like the question was asking also the overhead of having to call the service, the Cosmos DB service, when this is already the chat data that you consume in ChatGPT, for example, is already storing its data in Cosmos DB. It's an interesting question. It's maybe something we have to talk to our friends at OpenAI about as a possible enhancement there. But I would say Cosmos DB, like I said at the top there, it's very fast for atomic operations. You have guaranteed single-digit millisecond latencies on both reads and writes, which no other database in the world will guarantee. And that's all you're doing in these scenarios. You're storing and retrieving by partition key and ID value the chat items. So it's pretty fast. So not too much of an overhead, I don't think. There's always a trade-off with these things, but still, I think it's pretty rapid.
Well, are they asking if Azure OpenAI uses Cosmos DB in the background, so I can also use it like that and don't have to need to have another Azure Cosmos DB instance?
Yeah, I think it's another question angling at the same thing. If OpenAI is using Cosmos DB in the background, can't I just do all of this, get OpenAI to do it? Again, it may be something that is more tightly abstracted in the future with OpenAI or Azure OpenAI as a pane of glass. And actually, that is what the Azure AI folks are working on. And there is a service in Azure AI Foundry that actually does store this chat data in Cosmos DB, and this is all wired up automatically. So if you want to check that out, go and check out Azure AI Service, because all of that is being built as I speak. And like with everything, with Spring AI and every other abstraction known to man, there are trade-offs with having those, and having the control of controlling what the service is doing and what it's able to store allows you to bypass any restrictions that might be in those abstractions that are offered out of the box. So there'll always be a bit of a trade-off there, even when that is in place. But yes, the answer to the question is yes, and that's being worked on right now.
Okay, thanks, Theo. Also, thank you a lot for contributing to both Spring AI and LangChain for J. So we have the possibility of using Cosmos DB easily as our vector store here. And yeah, definitely check out his repository, because this guy knows what he's talking about, as you have heard in the last presentation. Thanks again for being with us. I imagine you have a bit of time to be in the chat for more questions. And with that, let's open the stage to Daniel. Hi, salut.
Hey, good to see you. Hi, everyone.
How's it? Are you also going to talk about? No, you're talking about
No,
security.
it's the end
right?
of AI for the day. I think maybe there's another subject, or another topic, but I think we're going to be shifting away from AI for a little bit.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's not fun, but it's very, it's serious. We all have to care about security. So I will not steal any much more of your time. Daniel, you're with the Spring team. Do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Correct. Yeah. So hi, I'm Daniel. I'm with the Spring team. I do a little bit of commercial work for our customers, but I also do open source, mostly on Spring security and security-related projects. So I'm here to talk about security, because we humans, we do need that security, right?
True. The stage is yours. Have fun.
Thank you. So today, I want to share with you a little bit the work we've been doing in the past year in Spring Security, which has come out as a first version in November, mainly one-time tokens and Passkeys. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm Daniel, work in the Spring team. Here's my contact. You can find me on the internet, on Blue Sky, on the web, on GitHub, by email, whatever you wish to use. Reach out. It'll be fun. Let's do something together. So the topic of today is passwords, or rather the lack of passwords. We're in 2025, and I hope I don't need to convince you that passwords are terrible. You have lots of people reusing passwords across websites, having very good passwords like admin123 that I have here on a sticky under their keyboard. Terrible. They get leaked. Then you give access. Hackers get access to all your accounts. Don't do passwords. Not good. Fortunately, we've been able to do login without passwords for a long time. We have new things that came across the years, but we've been able to do this for decades now. And it's still used every day in most websites. You can do privileged operations without your password, namely resetting your password, right? When you lose your password, you can still authenticate without the password. And the way websites most of the time implement this is by using one-time tokens. So one-time use codes they can use to log in. And it's supported in Spring Security now. So since 6.4 that came out in November, you can add one-time tokens as a way to log in. So let me show you that. I have an application, like a very basic, Spring Security secured application. I can log in, example.com, and then I log in with a super secure password, and it has one page. Just want to show you I can log in, log out. And so the way this is implemented in Spring Security is usually there is a security configuration class that contains a security filter chain that gives the security rules, and then also the ways you can log in or log out. And so our goal here for today is to remove this warm login. That's done. So we need to replace it with something. And the first simple thing we can do is use this one-time token login feature. So we can configure this to modify the behavior. There's a lot of things we can do, but there's one important thing that we need to do is at some point, Spring Security is going to generate a token, and we need to send that token to the user. So we need to configure it this way because this is very specific to your application. So the way we do this is we set a token generation success handler. So it takes a request, a response, and an OTT. And so there's a default one in Spring Security, the redirect one-time token generation handler, and it redirects to a login page where you can type the token. I'm going to call it OTT handler and then goal handle. So this just does the redirection, right? This clashes, let's call it token. Okay, so this is just a redirection. I'm not sure it's super interesting. We need to pass this, say, by email or something like that. So let's call this one the default OTT handler, and then we put our own logic here. So one thing we could do is print to the console, which makes it very easy to show it in a demo. Oops. So let's put a cookie, why not? Login attempt for that person, token value is that value, right? And so we print we want to print the username and the token value. So they're in this token construct. Here's the username. The token has a token value, right? And then we can print them here. In reality, in your apps, you're not going to print to the console because your users are not going to read standard out from your servers, right? So in real life, you will have some like notification thing that sends an email, that sends a text message, a notification on the phone, or something like this, which will be left as an exercise for you to implement. But here I have a mail notifier. I can send it at a given address. The address is the username here. We can log in to Spring OTT demo, and then we need to pass the token value, right? And so this will send an email for me. And now with this, I'm going to recompile my application, and once it recompiles, it will update. And so I will be able to log in with the token, and I have a localhost SMTP server for receiving emails here. So now if I go to my app, once it boots with the new config, perfect. Now, instead of having a form login, it has been replaced with one-time token requests. So I can put a username here, example.com, right? And I click send token. It redirects me to a page where I can put my token. So I can see it in the console in here, or I could go to the email page in here, and then I have the token that I can click. And if I zoom out, I also created a link to that page that we've seen that pre-fills the input. When I click sign in, it signs me in without having to use a password. So interestingly, this is a one-time token, right? So if I go to the submit page again, and I paste this one-time token that I copied from the email, then the request will be rejected, right? Because it's a one time, right? So if you use it a second time, if someone intercepts your traffic, they can't log in your place. Okay, so this is fine, and it works, and it's been working for a long time, but it feels like it's 1998, right? We're doing email, the flow is not super convenient, I have to switch apps, maybe I have to switch devices because my email is on my phone, and then the website I'm trying to log in at is on a public computer. So a bit annoying. And since for the past 5 years, we've had a new thing called Passkeys. So Passkeys is a way to log in using a device and doing cryptography. So we're not exchanging passwords anymore. We're doing much more secure things with public and private keys, but in a user-friendly way, right? There's no SSH agent or anything like that. So the way this looks like, I'm going to take an example because I use Passkeys myself. I'm going to go to github.com, perfect. And I'm going to show you my computer. So this is my phone looking at my computer. And so in here, I can click sign in now. And I could put my, Git email address, whatever I use for Git, and then my password, but then I need to do 2-factor, so maybe grab a code, and it's complicated. Or I could go and click this sign in with a passkey button. When I do this, a pop-up comes in from my browser or from iOS that says, do you want to use a passkey? And so in here, it's using Touch ID, which is the fingerprint reader on my Mac. So I'm going to use this finger here, transition it to this camera here, go and touch the reader. The Mac reads my fingerprint, validates it's me, unlocks a private key, does some crypto magic, and I'm logged into GitHub. So this is one of the ways, but maybe you're not using a Mac, maybe you don't have a fingerprint reader on your Mac. So there are multiple ways to store passkeys and log in. So for example, you could have a physical device. So here are some physical FIDO keys. This one is a YubiKey. I'm going to click it. It requires a PIN so that, if I lose my keychain, no one can log into my GitHub account, right? It blinks again. I can click. And so on this USB key, there is a private key that gets unlocked, a signature that happens, and I log in. And my favorite one is using my phone. So with my phone, I can log into GitHub onto any computer. So the way I do this, I click other signing options here, and I can choose a nearby device, such as Android or iPhone. When I click on it, I get a QR code. Now, using my phone, I can point at the QR code, click the sign in with a passkey here, and then it's going to ask which user account I want or where do I want my passkey from. And then it's going to ask for Face ID. So I need to do biometrics to unlock my phone. And then my phone communicates with the computer and logs me in. So very nice, user-friendly, nice and easy way to log into a website. Cool. So how does that work, right? As a user, you can go to your account, to your settings, and then in the login options, in password and authentication, here it's on GitHub, you can add your passkeys. You can have multiple passkeys as we've seen. So now let's imagine we want this on our website. So how does that work? First, a few terms. So I'm talking about passkeys. A passkey is a crypto credential. It's a private key that's tied to an account on a website to avoid phishing. So a passkey for GitHub for my account, but it can't be used on Google. It's a different passkey. To unlock this passkey or to store this passkey, I store it on an authenticator. An authenticator is a device or a software program that stores my passkeys, such as my YubiKey, my computer, or my phone. Sometimes you'll hear about FIDO. I mentioned FIDO keys. FIDO is the FIDO Alliance, so Fast Identity Online. It has Apple, Google, Microsoft, many, many, many more, Amazon, some banks, Intel, there's Netflix, many, many companies collaborate in there. And they work on two standards, WebAuthn and CTAP. The one we care about as app developers is WebAuthn. So it's a spec from the W3C that explains what JavaScript you can put in your browser to interact, or in your programs in your website to interact with an authenticator to log your users in. So it's a typical, W3C spec. It has, types defined, and it has flows, and it has diagrams, and it has code. It's very long. We don't want you to be reading this, so that's why we implement this in Spring Security. So in practice, how do these passkeys work? On your phone, on your YubiKey, on your Mac, you're going to have a private key generated for a website. So when I go to GitHub, I log in with my two-factor normal way, and then I say register a passkey. I'm doing the registration ceremony. So my authenticator, the phone, the YubiKey is going to create a private key, store it securely, and then share the public key with the website. And so in the future, when I come back to the site and I want to log in with a passkey, the authenticator is going to sign some challenge that the website sends. And then using the public key that it's stored, the website will be able to check whether it's really my private key that was used and whether the signature is valid. So the diagram is a little bit complicated, but worry not too much. Here's an example of how to register a passkey. And so what you would need to do as the implementer, has the relying party in WebAuthn terms, the server generates a random challenge. So the idea is that no one can just steal an existing signature that it knows about you and replay the attack. So every time I need to log in like this. So it generates a challenge, sends it to the browser, and the browser calls the credentials API, and it calls create when we're doing a passkey registration. If we're doing login, it calls credentials.get, but basically it's kind of the same type of API. And this wakes the authenticator up. So it wakes the phone, it wakes the platform, the Mac, it wakes the browser to show you a pop-up saying, do you want to use a passkey? And the authenticator here, so when I choose, say, my phone, prompts for verification. Do you want to log in to blah, blah, blah as this? Or do you want to use me? The user must be present. They must have an action. Even if there's no biometrics, even if there's no PIN, if they're just clicking a button, the user must click a button. So this way, website don't try and flood your devices to try and guess your private keys or leak your private key, for example. So the user then unlocks their authenticator. So either just by clicking, proving they're present, or by typing a PIN, doing biometrics, whatever is required by the platform. So that means, yes, I want to generate a passkey for github.com. So the authenticator, the phone, for example, generates a key pair, public key, private key. It stores the private key for github.com and only github.com. And then it signs the challenge that was sent and returns to this credentials create function. It returns the public key so that it can be sent to the website, and the signed challenge to prove that it also owns the private key. So then your browser sends this data to your website, and then in that case, github.com is going to take the challenge they know they sent you, take the public key you are sending, and the signed challenge, and then verifying that the signed challenge matches the real challenge using the public key, right? So it's a lot of steps, but as an implementer, the good sign is that you only need to care about things that happen either on the server or on the browser. The authenticator, it's already implemented in your phone, in your YubiKey, and I don't think you are implementing live users, that type of things. So what you need to do is two things: some server side. So we're doing Java here and Spring Security. So we're going to be doing Java, generating the challenge, and then storing the public key, verifying the signature. In the browser, you need to write some JavaScript. So the JavaScript that will bring the authenticator dialog up and communicate with your browser so that the browser can talk to the authenticator and obtain signed challenges. In Spring Security, we have very good support for the server side to create challenges, verify challenges, store, etc. We also have a default JavaScript, a default UI that does this already because it's quite involved. There are complicated formats. And so we provide you with some J things that are not Java, they're JavaScript. Okay, before we get into the actual implementation, one thing that I want to clarify, because it comes up from time to time, passkeys are not biometric, right? I unlocked my Mac using my fingerprint. I unlocked my phone with Face ID, with my face biometrics. It has nothing to do with the passkey. The passkey is a cryptographic credential. It's a private key with some metadata associated with it. Nothing to do with my face. But the passkey is stored somewhere. So it's stored in a physical device, such as my phone, in a password manager, on a YubiKey, whatever. To unlock that device, there might be biometrics. So to unlock my phone, I can do Face ID, biometrics with my face. To unlock my Mac, I can do biometrics with my finger. To unlock my YubiKey, it's a pin, right? So the biometrics part is just unlocking the authenticator. It's not about the private key. And sometimes these keys can be synced to the cloud. So maybe they're in your password manager, so they go to the cloud. Maybe they are in your iCloud keychain. And so you can use the same passkey across multiple devices, but you have different biometrics on those devices to log in or to unlock the device and get access to the private key, even though the private key is synced. Okay, that's a lot of theory for those who care. What does this look like in practice? So let's code a little bit. Let's do an implementation. So if we want to implement this, with every new thing, I would do go to Josh Long's second favorite place on the internet. He doesn't tell you much about this, but it's docs.spring.io. And on docs.spring.io, we can go and Spring Security. And let's make this light, zoom in a little bit, and then I can bring up the search bar, search for Passkeys, and you will have all the details you need to implement these passkey features. So, some snippets of code and some dependencies. So in here, you need Spring Security, but you also need WebAuthn4j. So WebAuthn4j is the library that does all the signature, the reading, the complex formats of a passkey for you. And so we don't reinvent the wheel. We just leverage what other people have been contributing to the community. So you need to pull in this dependency. Let's do this in our build file. Put it here. That's fine. Implementation. Okay, I need to re-import the Gradle project. And then I will restart the application once this is done. And then we need to configure our application to use passkeys. And so how do we do this? Well, we turn on WebAuthn, as we mentioned. I'm going to call this Passkeys, the customizer. And you need to configure something. So just like one-time token, you need to configure things. One thing that is required is the name of your app, so that it can show on an authenticator dialog. Yep, perfect. So let's call it Spring Secure or Spring Passkeys Demo. Okay, you need to configure the RPID. So the RPID is the domain on which the app runs. This avoids phishing. So here I'm doing my demo on localhost.com, but maybe I should be doing like passkeys.daniel or .garnier.wf if I were to deploy this to my website. So in here, this runs on localhost, and then allowed origins. So if I have multiple schemes, multiple ports, what does the actual full origin look like? And that's it. With this, Spring Security is able to understand that it should enable its passkeys feature. So when the app restarts, we can go to localhost 8080. There you go. And we have a new button, log in with the passkeys. When I click on it, a passkey dialog comes up. It would work. The problem with this, it would be great for a demo, but this configuration here, this is all in memory. So if I restart my application, I lose the public keys for my user, which is a very bad thing. Or if I have multiple apps, I want the apps to share the public keys, right, to all instances to be able to access the public keys. So as a developer, you need to implement two tables or two repositories. We assume you have a way to represent your users because users are logging in. So this is your user implemented as user details, but you can put whatever data you want in there. And so we have two new tables, the user credential records. The credential record is the thing that contains the public key for a user. So it has a credential ID and it has this big attestation object, which is the passkey response, which contains the public key. So this is where the public key is stored and some metadata for displaying. And then we have an association table, this public key credential user entity, which links a credential with an actual user. Coming in Spring Security 6.5, we have implementations for you. So you don't have to re-implement this from scratch. You may, if you will, right? If you want to be using JPA, for example, you can make your own repositories. But if you don't want to, you can do, you can have a let's call this public key repo, you can have a JDBC implementation. So in here, I can do a JDBC user credential repository, takes a JDBC operations. And then the second thing we need to implement is this association table. So the public key credential public key credential user entity repository. So public key to user repo, and it does take a JDBC operations, and it returns a new JDBC implementation of this, and voila, and that's it. This connects to your SQL database for storing your keys. If you want to look at the schema, so I pre-created the schema here, but if you want to know what schema is required, you can click on either of those JDBC implementations, and in the Java doc in here, it will tell you you depend on the table definition that's called here, right? User credential schema.sql, so you can look it up, and you'll find here are the fields I need to implement to actually use this JDBC implementation for this. And now with this is running now. I'm going to go back to the main app, right? So I need to register a passkey. Let's log in with a one-time token first. Poof. Click here, new one-time token. Yes, sign in, perfect. And now I can go to WebAuthn register. So with WebAuthn register, I have this UI to register a passkey. So let's register touch ID. Click here, it brings up the dialog. I use my finger. Where's the error server? It's here. Let's cancel this one. Oop, there we go. So we can see my finger doing the thing. So touch ID, right? I take it, put it here. It creates a private key for localhost, sends the public key, Spring Security gets it, and now I can log out and I can sign in with a passkey again. So here's my finger. Click here. Reads my fingerprint, unlocks, signs, and I sign in with a passkey. Now, this UI, it works and it's great, but maybe you don't want to be implementing this UI in production. Maybe for an internal website, these blue buttons are fine. If you have user-facing stuff, maybe you want to do something nicer. So in that case, what you need to do is you need to go to the sources of that page and then grab the JavaScript. So there's a big bunch of JavaScript, and you will have a register function and an authenticate function. So authenticate is for logging in, register is for adding a passkey to the user's account. All this code is open source. So Spring Security, this one here. So on the Spring Security website, you can go and look for WebAuthn core. In here, all this code, Apache license, you can take it, you can use it, you can customize it if you will. It's still quite big, right? There's some amount of JavaScript that goes in here. So it's a good place to start without having to think about all the details. Okay, with that, I should be at time or almost at time. So a few observations. It's a complicated topic. The user experience is great, right? I use my phone. I don't need to understand cryptography or anything. But as an implementer, as a developer, it's complicated. So if possible, just don't do this. Let your identity provider do this for you. So Microsoft Entra has support, Okta, Keycloak, whatever. They have passkey support. And so you can enable passkey support with these and not worry about passkeys yourself. If you need to implement it anyways, please use a library. It's very, very, it's a very deep topic, and you don't want to be implementing everything yourself. So Spring Security has great support. Coming in 6.5 in May, we'll have the JDBC implementations. And please contribute, raise issues, upvote issues, propose some code. We're very happy to work with the community. If you want to contribute, you probably want to go to this developers.ubco.com website, which has all the details for all the things. So all the the diagrams that I showed there here in more detail. If you want to learn about WebAuthn, right? So they have, examples of the JavaScript you need to write and the JSON it does. And with that, I cede the floor again. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. The sample is available online. Reach out if you have feedback. And here's a QR code for feedback for the session if you want to help me make it better.
You have to stay with us. We have a lot of questions.
Amazing, amazing.
Is it GA?
Yeah, so it is GA. So yes, the passkey support has came out in Spring Security 6.4. It has, registration flows, authentication flows. It doesn't support all possible use cases in the universe. You may need to do your own thing. So, for example, if you want your users to create an account with a passkey and no password, well, you would need to do a little bit of code yourself. But the basic building blocks are there. And in 6.5, we've done a lot of polishing, fixing some edge cases, adding JDBC. And so if you want more use cases, again, github.com, Spring Projects, Spring Security, issue tracker, look for WebAuthn, look for passkeys, and upvote the issues you care about.
Do you think that Passwordless will be the de facto standard at some point for all logins?
Is Passwordless going to be the de facto standard? I do not know. It's still early days in terms of adoption. So when I go to conferences and I do passkey demos and I chat with people, 5%, 10% of developers who are usually early adopters are using it. So there is a big push from vendors to actually use this because it's more secure than a raw password, but it's still not there. So we're working on this adoption. I don't know if it will be the main use case. I love it for all my multi-factor, right? Because my phone is something I have, and I unlock it with my my face, which is something I am. So I'm doing multi-factor in one action, and it's great. So I hope it gains a lot of usage. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, same for me. I also have the UBI key thanks to Deepu, but then my phone is always with me. So until I found that one, I already have the phone ready. Yeah, and also people are sharing in the chat that e.g. for Firefox, it might not work so well currently. As you said, it's the early stage of adoption. So thanks for being with us. I feel you're going to be a bit around in the chat. And let's open the stage for our next guest.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you quite well. Hi, Daniel Keck. How are you doing?
Great.
How's life at Oracle?
It's always great in Oracle.
So you're here to share one of my favorite topics, which is virtual threads. I really love it for all the event-driven things I did in the past, and I'm still a huge fan. It's like my way to go, and I had to do a lot of effort, like using Vertex, totally different programming style to use it back then in 2013, 2014. But with virtual threads, it's all getting a lot easier. So with no further ado, the stage is yours. Can't wait to hear it.
Awesome. So thank you for coming. It's not physical coming, right? It's just opening the browser. I'll be talking about virtual threads. I'll be talking about Jakarta EE. And when I'll be talking about virtual threads, I'll be actually talking about the Helidon. But first, I will introduce myself a little. I am Daniel Katz. I work at Oracle as a Java developer, and I'm a team member of the people who are making the Helidon. You can find me on those various social networks, the old ones like Twitter, or the new ones like the Blue Sky and Mastodon and all the others. You can read my blog articles at Medium and ask me any Helidon-related questions if you want. We have a really short agenda because this will be a very short slide deck. So we will do just two things, actually. We will introduce Helidon, what is it, and what features it has. And because that is actually a first full-blown virtual thread-based web server on the market. And then we will move to the Jakarta EE compatibility, and we will see how Helidon is first runtime actually certified, first Jakarta EE core runtime actually certified, and on top of the virtual threads. So we will take a look what has changed there. So what is the Helidon and what is it good for? Helidon is a microservice framework. To explain it best, our main competitor is a Spring Boot. It's very similar. It's a web server built to play nice with Kubernetes from ground up. It's completely open source, even though it's backed by Oracle. All source code is available at GitHub. You can find it, you can contribute, you can file an issue if you find any. And unlike Spring Boot, Helidon keeps the number of third-party dependencies as low as possible. This is very important for a lot of our enterprise users, because if you ever worked in enterprise, you know how hard it is to get approval for that another third-party library you just need, or a couple of them you need because of the new framework you are using. So Helidon keeps the number of third-party libraries as low as possible. So if you are making the small Hello World application, you don't actually have to download the half of the universe with Helidon. It will be really, really small. And with Helidon, you can choose your path with the right flavor. We have 2 flavors of Helidon. We have Helidon SE, which is a micro framework. There is no magic, no injection. It's a pure performance, which you have to wire yourself together with builders and Lambda. So if you want to make your hand a little dirty, you can do everything yourself and you have full control about everything. If you want to go a little more enterprisey and use annotations and injections, you can use Helidon MP, which is completely annotation driven. It implements microprofile specification, so you have many Jakarta specs implemented there, like the RESTful JAX-RS, the CDI. So you can use annotations and inject stuff instead of wiring everything yourself and concentrate more on your business agenda. It's very easy to use then. Helidon MP actually uses Helidon SE under the hood. So this powerful engine of Helidon SE built on top of the virtual threads is actually powering Helidon MP. MP is just adding all kinds of magic so you can concentrate at your business code fully. Here is HTTP get hello world resource in both flavors, so you can compare it. I say resource, the Spring developer would say controller, right? On the left side, you can see Helidon SE builder pattern with Lambda, and on the right, you can see JAX-RS resource with annotations. That's very same JAX-RS resource you would use in WebLogic or Glassfish or Tomcat if you wouldn't be using the servlet. So this is very familiar API for any enterprise developer out there. So this is the distinction. With Helidon SE, you are actually want to tweak it to get the best performance possible and do everything yourself. With Helidon MP, you want to do, the work done. So what is new in Helidon 4? Helidon 4 is fairly new. It requires JDK 21 and newer. It's simply because it's built from top on the virtual threads, from the socket all the way up to your JAX-RS resource. Everything is virtual threads. There is nothing reactive, nothing asynchronous there. And you achieve the comparable performance like with the reactive APIs. So we got rid of all the reactive stuff from our web server. We got rid of Netty, well-known and very powerful library for working reactively or asynchronously with sockets in Java. Yet we are achieving comparable performance. It's simply because it's the same trick behind the hoods. We are just avoiding the context switches, same way like you would with reactive APIs. But this time you don't have to have the reactive APIs. It's all nicely hidden from you, and you can use really simple imperative code, which is easy to debug, easy to understand, and easy to explain to that junior developer who just joined your company, right? So we have created a brand new web server for this, the one which is fine-tuned for the virtual threads from the socket all the way up. There is no reactive layer anymore. And when we say that we are using virtual threads, there is no offloading or retrofitting. We are not using, the old stuff and just running, starting new virtual threads on top of it. We have started right from the sockets. So we have been actually the first implementation who used virtual threads in this way. The Helidon is virtual thread per request in a web server built specifically to work best with virtual threads. Also, we are optimized for Java sockets with virtual threads. We get faster and faster each time new release of Java arrives. So with Helidon, you get more performance for free each time Ron Pressler and the other guys from the Loom team makes the JDK a little more faster. That's because we have been developing Helidon with close cooperation with JDK team. Removal of Netty allowed us to get rid of all the reactive APIs. Again, this is very important. That's why I'm repeating it so many times. Our brand new web server with a secret code name NEMA is clean, fast, and optimized for virtual threads from ground up. Helidon SE API, which was reactive before, reactive APIs are kind of viral. They are just, going through all your code base, and once you infect your code base with it, you cannot get rid of it. That changed significantly because it was replaced by the API which embraces the blocking code, the imperative programming. Way easier, big change there. In Helidon MP, in the more enterprisey version, nothing has really changed because it has been always imperative. It was always been blocking. It had to be simple with all the injection. So nothing has changed there. It just got way faster. So Jakarta RESTful APIs didn't change at all. We do provide 3 ways of packaging of Helidon application out of the box. The default one is a tin jar. It's a small application jar just with your business logic, accompanied by lib folder for all the dependencies, even the Helidon ones. Everything is all dependencies are in the lib folder. If you have ever programmed in C-lang, it's very similar deployment model. And this is very practical for Docker image layering. So if you do some small change in your business code, you don't have to really push all your dependencies into that remote Docker repository. You will push just the layer with your business code and with a few bytes you have changed. Another option is JLink image. We have in our quick starts, we have prepared Docker images with that packaging option already. It allows creating minimalistic custom-tailored Java runtime just for your application. It understands JPMS modules and it does a tree shaking of your JDK, so you can keep only the parts which you really need. By the way, all Helidon modules are JPMS module, like the proper ones, because we are Oracle shop, so we have to do everything properly, right? I did this small example for you with our quick start Hello World, and I have achieved a 74% size reduction with JLink image. So my example was 340 megs. That was the JDK plus the application. And I created an image of 88.5 megabytes. So it was really small. And out of that 88 megs, 23 megabytes was actually a context data sharing archive, which you may know now from the Leiden project. That's the way how you can actually warm up in advance your application and save some build time startup data, so you can start really fast and with peak performance already. And the next one is Graal VM native image. You can create native binary with super fast startup time with Helidon. We have been supporting this for years now with both flavors, with SE and MP. So all your CDI and JAX-RS annotation-driven applications will work just fine with native image. It has more advanced tree shaking, which does not depend on the JPMS modules. So with my small Hello World example, I have achieved 8% size reduction. For example, that example of 340 megs, I have managed to lower to 41 megabytes. And again, like with the JLink, you don't need any additional JDK in your Docker container anymore. It will just run as it is because JDK is already there. All those options are easy to use with containers. That's what we are trying to help you with. Helidon also supports ahead of time optimization for faster startups and immediate peak performance. Again, we have extensive native image support, and thanks to that, you can get up to 40 times faster startup. That's what I have measured with my small example with the PGO. That means you create one native image, you do the training and warm up, and then you create another one, and then you get a really fast binary, which starts immediately and super fast. Helidon also works great with Leiden. Cool thing about Leiden is that there is no extra effort needed from your application, and you get almost 3 times faster startup for free. You can do warm-up training to reach peak performance right after the start and everything, and you don't have to really change anything. It works out of the box with any Java application. And we have just added support for CRAC. That's not a drag or something. That's coordinated restore and checkpoint technology. It's based on the CREW. If you use Linux, you know it. Every time you make your computer sleep, that's what's used behind the scenes. And that's also a very cool way for achieving more than 30 times faster startups with Helidon. That's what I was able to measure with my really small example. And some AI, we have to add it, right? I guess I can safely say that LangChain4j is the most popular library for using LLMs in Java right now. It is inspired by LangChain Python library. It brings a ton of cool features abstracted away under a very nice API. And with LangChain4j, you can wire together LLMs, vector stores, tools, and more, and you switch underlying vendor libraries with ease. The strength of the library is the lean abstraction its API provides. So can we make the LangChain4j API even better? Well, we surely try in Helidon, and you can use our integration for LangChain4j, which is built on top of a brand new feature, the Helidon Inject, which is a completely built time. So it has injection which have no impact on performance. Everything is done in the build time. This way, you can have all those annotations you are used to with LangChain4j in Helidon, and it will be super fast. And you can use it in both flavors, in Helidon SE and Helidon MP. So you can use it from CDI beans, Jaxares resources, or from Helidon SE Builder Lambda. So you can use it everywhere in Helidon. And of course, Helidon integrates well with WebLogic, right? We are from Oracle, so we have certified integration with WebLogic. You can integrate over JMS, REST, good old-fashioned SOAP, single sign-on over OpenID Connect, or you can use distributed transactions with LRA and XA together with Oracle MikroTix Transaction Coordinator. All works nicely together. So that is Helidon, our virtual thread-based microservice framework. Now we can jump into the Jakarta compatibility now. That's what we will be talking about. You may have already heard the big news. The Helidon 4 is certified as Jakarta EE core compatible runtime. But that doesn't mean that Helidon is some kind of a newbie within Jakarta EE ecosystem. Yes, previous versions were not certified as Jakarta compliant, but as you can see in this little timeline I have prepared for you, since the release of Helidon 1 at the beginning of 2019, the Helidon MP implemented all the necessary specifications under microprofile umbrella, including Java EE in Helidon 1 and later Jakarta EE APIs in Helidon 2 and 3. Unluckily, until recently, there was no direct intersection between the Jakarta EE specifications we considered as practical for microservice development and certifiable Jakarta profile. So there was no profile no Jakarta box which would actually fit all our needs. So we haven't been really certified, but we have been implementing a lot of Jakarta specifications. Because Helidon was always a standard-based microservice runtime. And that's no random coincidence. The Helidon core team in Oracle actually consists of many seasoned committers to various Jakarta EE implementations and specs. Just to list some, I can name TopLink for JPA, Eclipse Link, again, JPA, Moxie, JaxB, Jersey for Jaxares, Yasen, Metro, JSON-BRI, Parson, Tyrus, HK2. There is a lot of them. There's a lot of my teammates are actually actively committing or even spec leading some of those specifications. That's why the Helidon has been always the big brother of all those specifications. With Helidon 4 MP and Jakarta EE10, Helidon fully covers all the specs that are practical for microservice development. Plus, it partially covers others for the very same reason. So as you can see, we didn't really need it servlet and server pages and enterprise bean. We don't need it AGBs in microservices, right? That's why even the Jakarta web profile was still too wide for us. But we would have all the goodies we needed, yet not be able to claim the true Jakarta compliance. But with Jakarta 10, a new, slimmer, and for microservice development, more practical profile came, the core profile. Jakarta profile specifically created for the bare minimum needed for microservice development. So as you can see from already smaller web profile, which was still too wide for us, too big box to fit in, just a few essential specs were cut out as a Jakarta EE10 core profile. Profile tailored specifically for microservice development. You can notice that CDI has been split to CDI and CDI Lite, more build time friendly subset of CDI specs. And another ones which are really necessary, like the JAX-RS for the RESTful web services, JSON support, dependency injection, and so on. And Microprofile 6 took it on pretty fast and moved from dependency on the several Jakarta EE specs, which was quite messy, to a single Jakarta EE core profile, therefore aligning with Jakarta really nicely. And this is simplifying the situation to all the runtimes and libraries for microservice development, not only for Helidon. Situation is much more understandable for our users, and the relationship between Jakarta EE and Microprofile is clear. Again, we can compare how Helidon 3 implemented several standalone Jakarta EE specs to be Microprofile 5 compliant. This is the situation before. This was a little complicated to grasp and explain. So I have created those small icons, if you can see them there. There is Jakarta for the Jakarta specs, this sailboat, and there is Microprofile logo for all the specs which are part of the Microprofile. So the Microprofile has always been based on top of the Jakarta specs, on the selected ones, not any special profile. It was Microprofile. And even the creation of this slide took extra effort because it was hard to figure out which one is one, right? While with Helidon 4, we do the same thing. We are just supporting same specs as we did, just the new versions of them. And with Jakarta EE10 core profile, we are fully compatible now. And you can see that small box on which the Microprofile 6 now depends on is actually kind of like a placeholder for all those specs which were messy to understand. The situation with Microprofile and Jakarta EE is very obvious now. Jakarta EE core profile is making a base platform for other Microprofile specs. It's easy to understand and is very easy to explain. It is still very similar to previous situation. As you can see, we are just implementing newer versions of all those separate Jakarta specs. But the relationship is clearly defined. You can see that Microprofile depends on the core profile, and the core profile clearly defines which specifications from the Jakarta actually belongs to there. And because of that, we can proudly say that we are Jakarta EE compatible runtime. Finally, we have been always, but this time there is a right box for us, right box for the microservices. Because of the new Jakarta EE10 core profile and Microprofile 6 alignment with Jakarta EE10, the whole concept gets way simpler to understand for our users. And that is not something that comes really cheap. It's an assurance for our users that their Helidon MP-based application won't be bound by a vendor lock. It will be easy to maintain and upgradable to new versions of Helidon. And if someone doubts that, we can simply send them to check that Helidon is actually listed as Jakarta EE core compatible runtime on the Jakarta EE web pages, right? There is a box for us, finally. Our users have clear assurances, not only from us, but from the whole great Jakarta EE community, that their business code won't get old too fast as it could in any vendor-locked runtime, as their developers don't have to be a single runtime specialists. And support for the APIs they are using will be much wider than it could ever be from any single vendor right now. And that's all for the Jakarta running on virtual threads. If you want to know more about Helidon, you can find out about us on our web pages. We have really nice ones. We have a Twitter account, Blue Sky account, Mastodon account, all the accounts. We are blogging a lot on the Medium, so you can read some interesting articles on our Medium channel. Is it channel? We are completely open source. You can find all the source codes of Helidon on GitHub. We are even doing some videos on YouTube, not much recently, and we have also a public Slack channel for free support. So if you have any technical problem with Helidon, you can contact us there. There is always some developer assigned to that channel for a given week. So we are trying to have always professionals looking over that channel and helping our users.
Wow, always on support. That sounds nice, being a developer. We also have a question from the chat. Hi, Daniel.
Okay.
Who do we talk to integrate CDI synthetic bean to Helidon fault tolerance, like command binding annotation?
It's Tim. You can find Tim Quinn. He can help you with fault tolerance, or Tomas Langer. Those are the guys that know most about the fault tolerance for CDI. Yeah. We are implementing the microprofile fault tolerance spec, so everything should work as it is. If not, that would be an issue. And I don't really know the command binding annotation. Sorry for that. I am not expert in that area.
And you said you have the Slack channel you already provided where we can find it. Okay, great. And can you help me a bit? I think I got a bit confused by the title. So you had virtual threads, but it's like Helidon running on virtual threads, or is it just the best place for me to run virtual threads in Java?
It's the best use case for virtual threads, because if you use virtual threads from the ground up, for the sockets, you actually with virtual threads, you are actually replacing the need for the whole Netty library, which is really cool library, which has been for years the best way how to do networking with Java really fast. But now we don't really need it, because all that really complicated trick for avoiding the context switches when the sockets are blocking is actually done behind the scenes. It's the same trick. It's just done the way that you don't have to pollute your code base with all those reactive APIs. And once you get into the reactive APIs, it's really hard to clean it up from your code base. And because we have been using reactive APIs in Helidon for years, we know that almost no one is doing them correctly. Your code base gets that complicated that all that performance benefits are just lost in all the mistakes you do when you block somewhere when you shouldn't, or you don't use flat map as you should, and stuff like that. It's always very complicated. Even the senior developers have problem when they're returning to some older code base to understand what they have been actually trying to do there. When you are debugging stuff, you are jumping, from one place to another. The stack traces doesn't make sense anymore, and it's really complicated. So with virtual threads, everything gets super easy. You can explain it to anyone. It's imperative. It's blocking, and the performance is on par with reactive streams.
Yeah, and I don't have to decide upfront that I want to use them. I can code my code like I did before, and just by annotations or configuration, I can use them.
You can use some old libraries which are written for the physical threads, and it will work just fine.
True. Okay, thanks for enlightening us with Helidon. Do you want to say anything about to compare Micronaut and Helidon?
Compare Micronaut and Helidon? Well, Micronaut is using Netty, so that's the problem. They're offloading to, if you want to go with virtual threads in Micronaut, I'm not sure what the support is right now, but what I'm pretty sure that they are using Netty behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So if you are using reactive web server, you have to offload to the virtual thread. That meaning that you have to start new virtual thread and let loose the the worker threads from the netty. And this is just, another layer of abstraction. You are still keeping this super complicated nuclear power plant behind the scenes, and that's really not necessary anymore. You can make it very simple. That's what we have really learned from rewriting everything to virtual threads, is that our web server is that simple. If we have some issue, we can fix it really easily because everything is super small, super easy to reason about. While if you have ever worked with netty APIs, you know that it's not easy thing to do.
Okay. Thanks, Daniel, for being with us. It was very helpful, and I learned a lot of things about Helidon, and also I love the fact that you're now Jakarta EE compliant. So we have that, something to celebrate. And with that, let me introduce Frederick Hane on stage with me. And potentially also very shortly, can we have the survey thing so we can get feedback? Yes, thank you. So all feedback is very welcome. Also the feedback for Daniel's session, which have been very great, as well as the Helidon session we just had. Please share it. And also for overall JDConf, please take your minute to share this. And now let me get Frederick back. Hey, Frederick, did you have lunch already?
No, in fact, no.
Oh, okay, you're not eating lunch?
Not regularly. And I'm a bit nervous, to be honest.
Okay, you are?
Yes, I am. Because everyone talked about new fancy stuff, and basically I'm talking about old stuff being rediscovered nowadays. So it's a bit strange.
Yeah. Yeah, so I always struggle with I hope I'm not misinterpreting anything again here. So I'm always struggling with the front end. Like I'm a back-end developer, but sometimes I need something to show off. So having XHTML hopefully will help me here. And Frederick, you are an engineer at Adesso, or what are you doing?
Yes, exactly. Working as a software architect and engineer at Adesso in Paderborn, in Germany. So we are in the same time zone. And basically, our office already because you visited us last year.
Yeah, it's a great office. Also a JAG hoster. So if you are in town and a great speaker, I think you all are. If you're a Java developer, please ping Frederick and to be hosted at his JAG. And with that, I want to know more about HTMX.
Yes. Okay, so hello, everyone. Last session, I'm trying to make it fast. Usually I do this talk at Java user groups taking maybe more than an hour. Now I have just half an hour, 25 minutes maybe. So maybe something is rushed, but I hope it's working out in this time frame. So shortly about me, as I already said, I'm working in Paderborn. It's the smallest, largest city in Paderborn in Germany. So we have 150,000 people, and it's famous for churches, beer, and bread because, that's also our mascot there. And maybe the beer. I heard it. You can get it everywhere. Once we visited Dublin, and everywhere you could get Paderborner Pilsner. But you should not try it if you don't need to. Okay, so what I'm talking about, the whole thing about web development. In the last couple of years, somehow single-page applications became the de facto standard when building web applications and web UIs. But it also increased the complexity you have to handle. So you have different tools, new tools. Basically, every month there is a new shiny tool in the JavaScript world you need to try. And it increases the complexity you have to handle. You have to have an API you need to manage and the front end. And the question is, do we really need this complexity? Maybe not, because most of the times you can easily start with static HTML. You have some pages, links between that, and you are getting quite well and quite far with that. But most of the times there is a point in time when you need more dynamic things. So think of endless scrolling, or you have a blog post with comments and you want to appear new comments dynamically underneath your post. And that's the point where usually you switch to single page applications. The question is, do we really need that? On the other end of the of the applications, we have something like Miro or Figma, which are not very well fitted for a static HTML because they are so dynamic. So in that case, it makes totally sense to have a single page application with all the things they can do. But most of the times, maybe not. So let's see what we can do. What I'm talking about is, as I said, a quite old concept. It's hypermedia and hypertext. So hypermedia, I learned in university about it, and it was coined by Ted Nelson in the 60s. And it even can be tracked to the 40s when the BMX was introduced. What is hypermedia? So hypermedia is basically, the core concept is you have a nonlinear branching model between documents. So they're talking about documents, and there are links between these documents. And you can jump from one document to another, and then to another, and maybe come back to the first document. An implementation of that is HTML. It's hypertext. It's omnipresent today. I guess everyone has seen HTML. And think of Wikipedia as the prime example for this hypermedia concept, right? If you look at a typical Wikipedia page, you see a lot of links there, and you can get lost in all the links. And if you follow them, you're basically happy for multiple days to read and learn new stuff. But there are only two hypermedia controls. You have the anchor tag and the form element. These are two things you have, nothing more. And you know, basically you have full page reloads, right? You maybe see the white flickering when opening a link, and then you have a new page, and it just doesn't feel like an application. It really just documents. Yeah, and you can only use the anchor tag to open new documents, and to change something, you only have a form document. So a form element. You have to post something to the server. The question is, why is that? Basically, you could say at some point in time, HTML has stopped evolving as hypermedia. And somehow JSON data APIs, single page applications arise. And these are not hypermedia because you can't follow the links. But on the other hand, anchors and forms have been enough to make the web grow rapidly. And if you think of older applications, older websites, what they just achieved with this simple concept was astonishing. Nevertheless, HTML was a bit too static and limiting. Maybe you remember jQuery. jQuery was the first thing that made it possible to bring more interactivity to static HTML pages. And afterwards, single page applications came in. But what would happen if HTML has evolved? There is no reason why only anchor tags or forms could trigger a request. Why do you only allow a click and a submit? Why is it only get and post? Why do you need to replace the entire screen? Why not just maybe just a comment section, or just a small form you just validated on the server and just replace that? And of course you can do that, but it's not part of HTML right now. So that's where HTMX comes in place. You can think of HTMX as HTML extended, maybe. And what is HTMX? HTMX is a small JavaScript library. So we have still JavaScript in our stack. It's just around 14K. So very, very small. And what does it do? You can think of it maybe jQuery on steroids, but it's more. So it simplifies Ajax, WebSockets, server-sent events to handle all this kind of stuff directly in HTML with additional attributes. So it's just declarative definition of your logic. So you can see what it's doing. So it fits very well the HTML approach. Think of an anchor tag. You don't define how the browser is actually loading that. You just say, I want to load that URL, and the browser is doing a thing. Same for a form element. You don't define how this form is serialized, sent to the server. It's just a declarative definition what to do, not how to do it. In the core of HTMX, you have maybe 4 to 5 essential attributes. This is HX get, post, put, and delete. So with that, you define where to get the updated data from, or where to put or post the data to. With HX target, you define what element to exchange on the page. HX trigger defines when to start a request. So is it a click, or is it, you can even define something like an element appears on screen, this triggers a request and exchanges some element. And the HX swap attribute is quite interesting because it defines how to replace the element. So just replacing the inner HTML, outer HTML of the element, or some sophisticated things like morphing with morph DOM or some similar approach. And with these 4 to 5 attributes, you are able to really push this point in time further to the right before you really need a single page application. Let's have a look at how this looks. So we have here a simple form element, which is triggering a post request on the key up event. I don't know if I can show it with the pointer here. Do you see my mouse? I think so. So you can just trigger it with a key event. So in this time, enter, you press the enter key. It will trigger a post request to the server, and it will target this element here. It's not on the screen. And the answer you get from the server will be appended at the end of this element. So it's a list. It will just be a new element. And the server now answers with partial HTML. So it's not returning JSON or something. It's just returning a small subset of the page. In this case, it returns the list item, the HTML list item. And with this, you can really define typical patterns for web applications. So when I talk about web applications, I'm talking about form-based web applications. So typical enterprise applications, you have forms, data, tables to display something. So you can define paging, sorting. You can even update multiple things on the page if you like. So you have really, really great power. Another example, that's the paging example. You see here the list of items, and the last item basically triggers once a request when this element intersects your viewport. Then this request is triggered, and the new block of, I think it's 5, yeah, it's 5 items is loaded, and the last item again has this trigger inside. So if you scroll down further, a new request with the next 5 items will be triggered. So it looks very simple and powerful. Okay, so where we are. Okay, remember the graph from before, from the beginning. Now we don't need to switch to a single page application quite early. We have a lot more possibilities to stick with simpler HTML static pages. You can do progressive enhancements, so you can even build an application that still works without JavaScript, with a different user experience, but you should not use HX Boost. What is HX Boost doing? It just intercepts, for example, all requests and make an AJAX call to the server. It's not a good idea to do that. But now any element can trigger a request. You can use any HTTP method, and any element can be replaced. So you can replace your form with, don't know, a validated version of the form. You can load new content on demand. You can do active search. You can just type and you update your search results immediately with the things you got from the server. You can even use advanced features like server-sent events. So it's quite simple to define or to connect your HTML to a server-sent event endpoint and just push updates from the server to the client side. You can also use WebSockets for that, and everything is defined in a declarative manner. This is simple, but yet powerful enough to do a lot of things. Yeah. So that's on the client side. What are we doing on the server side? Of course, you need templating somehow. Maybe you know time leave or free marker, or from the older times, something like Java server pages. Of course, you can use that. Time leave is quite nice. It's feature rich. You have a lot of things like translation. You have good iterator support, formatting of units, and all the stuff. The framework integrations are usually very well. So it's a first-class citizen Spring and Micronaut, whatever. And it has a nice feature which is called fragments. If you think of what we are doing, we are now returning partial HTML. So we are returning small snippets of HTML, but we also want to use the small snippets in our page, for example. You can do that with time leave very easily to reuse these fragments. But what is bad about it, it's quite error prone because you don't have type safety, for example. You don't know what attributes the page really needs. Maybe you've heard about JTE. It's not that new anymore. I think it's 5 years old already. But it's pretty cool because you have a kind of type safety. It's a compiled template, and you need to define what parameters these template uses. So you really see and get to know what's happening. And it's very, very fast. Most of the times that's not needed because rendering is certainly not the most needed performance part in a web application. Partials and fragments are also working quite well. Not so nice like in time leave, I would say, but they are working good enough for a use case. You can also use JStachio, which is also type-safe alternative. They are using Mustache templates and create a type-safe Java wrapper for the template. But I've never used it, so I'm not sure how the experience is, but I heard a lot of good things about that. Last week, I was at JavaLand, and there was another nice approach to get this type safety back into our templates. Basically, just using code for that. There is, I think this is Kotlin X, so it's an HTML DSL for building HTML documents. And this is a Java version of that. It's working good, and with Kotlin it feels okay to use. With Java, with all these bloat here and the needed to close the tags with a function call, it feels a bit strange, but it's a very nice way to create reusable components because they are just a function call. Like you see here in the right part, the common layout is just a function call, and it's a template which is rendered then, which is very nice. I planned a really short demo, but maybe I will move that to the end because I'm not sure how much time we have left. So keep it like keep it for the end. Okay, we have now possibilities to interact with the server. We can update HTML. We could be quite happy, but sometimes maybe you really need a client-side state. This could be you have maybe some kind of wizard where you need to hold some client-side state, or you have components, UI components that need to have a state like an open state, or they are closed or something like that. And you don't want to manage this state on the server side. It doesn't make sense. But you can use something else. You can use, for example, Alpine.js or Stimulus, which is called from the hot-wired world, from the Ruby world, I think. And it works very well. They are both small and lightweight, so you don't add too much bloat like with a single page application to your stack. And they pair very well with this Hypermedia approach. When to use what? I would use Alpine for UI components, so really just UI state. And Stimulus works a bit different because you have to write a real JavaScript or TypeScript controller. With Alpine, you can all define everything in a declarative manner, so it's really, it feels more natural, and you don't need a compile step for that. That's very nice, but if you have the need to do some more things in the UI, I would go with Stimulus or Hotwired. Okay, so when to use HTMX? For everything? No, because we don't have the golden hammer for that. Most cases, I would say it's a good fit for form-based applications. So typical enterprise applications, you have a CRUD interface, an e-commerce site, and you have nested UI elements. I mentioned you can update basically every element on the page if you like, but with that approach, you are really going into the jQuery direction we don't want to have anymore, because everything can be updated and you don't know when and you don't know where. So it should be in a nested manner and controlled updates. So maybe not a good idea to update something in the lower left corner and then update everything you have in your header bar, for example. So it really makes it hard. And what is very nice about that, you aim for full stack development with a small team. So because with that approach, a typical Java developer can achieve a quite good user experience. And you don't need to master two stacks. So you don't need to know Spring by heart and Angular by heart. It's, in quotes, just HTML. And of course, your application should follow these Hypermedia exchanges. So you should not try to have one part managed by a JSON data API, which is consumed by HTMX. It would work, but it somehow doesn't make sense, because the idea is to really use HTML snippets for that. And when definitely not to use it. Maybe you have offline requirements for your application. It won't work if you need to communicate with the server for every interaction or something dynamic. And if you have an application which updates a lot of stuff and maybe not dependent elements, as I said before, it's not a good idea to use it. And if your application is updated very frequently, so think of Miro or something like that, so real-time interaction, it's also not a good idea. If you're not in control of the server side, you can't use it, but you can combine a single page application approach with HTMX. I think Astro.js is calling that dynamic islands. So you basically have a static HTML and you can enhance some parts of the page with, don't know, any React component, or maybe not Angular, but you can do that. But you should be aware that HTMX has certain security implications. It doesn't work well with certain parts of content security policies. It opens cross-site scripting attacks again, or a more widespread approach, because there are things like trigger events, which will trigger events on the client side from JavaScript. And you can then inject HTML, for example, in certain parts. And that's not a good idea. I think we have 5 minutes left for questions. I've put up an example repo on GitHub. You can explore it on yourself. There is a list of resources. Just follow them, and you can contact me on Mastodon or LinkedIn if you have any questions left or just want to talk about HTMX.
Thanks. That's a great presentation. I really love HTML or HTMX because, you know, I can focus on my backend and it integrates so nicely with Spring Boot. So like our workshop we will do at DevOps France and also in a minute at 42 Berlin, I'm also using that for my front end because I can focus on the back end, and with time leave, it doesn't even look bad, right? It actually looks good, as I would know what I'm doing here. So it's pretty decent. And this is one of the questions in the chat. I think somebody asked, like, Marius asked, is it not good? I'm using it and it's great.
Yes, it's great. Agree. I use it in smaller projects. In the current project I'm working on, we are using, it was created a few years ago, the Stimulus part, and it's really working great. So you can ship features much faster, I would say, than having to define an API and let the front-end team create the front-end, and then the API doesn't match the front-end. Where's the demo?
Then there's a question, where's the demo? So I fear the demo is at github.com/atomfrede/JDConf -24-samples or with the QR code.
Exactly.
Okay. And thanks again, Frederick, for being with us, because I think for me it's time to wrap it up. So we do have a survey. So again, we are very interested in all of your feedback. Please share with us how you like the individual sessions, how you like me as a host, like who's your favorite host, and also how you like JDConf overall. Maybe was there a topic that you missed? You can also share that with us. And we also do have homework for you. I know you already had a lot of homework from our presentations, but there's another one, which is our learning path. So we created a new learn opportunity for you. You can find it at aka.ms/learn-java-skilling. We bundled some basic Java knowledge together with AI knowledge, even agents, so you can build your own agent here. Yes. And we also have recorded on-demand sessions. So you can check out our on-demand content on jdconf.com, as well as all the streams we recorded earlier yesterday for the American time zone, including our amazing keynote by Amanda Silva and my manager, Julian Dubois, as well as other sessions by Josh Long, Dan Beggar. And then we also had the great sessions in the APAC time zone, which were hosted by Rory Preddy. And yes, so if we have no crowd for this, thanks again. Share your results or share your feedback in the survey. Do the learn path. Stay tuned for next year's edition. I'm so keen to have you next year back. There is a CFP which will come up front again. Do your homework, Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.